Hope everybody's doing well. We're going to go ahead and get started tonight. So we have with us board tonight. We have two of our folks that are doing part two of our section, or our study, excuse me, tonight. We have Dr. Paul Silversky here with us, and Mr. Doug, I want to say his last name correctly,
Exley, yes.
And these gentlemen have been in the district throughout today. They'll be here again tomorrow, and they're conducting the comprehensive portion of our study, another portion of our study, part two. So I'd like to welcome them tonight, and this is our great board, and I will have them kind of just go around and get on the table and just introduce ourselves, and we'll let them go ahead and facilitate this evening.
It's you.
Pam Pendleton, oh yeah, I'm on the board. Pam Pendleton, board member.
Dennis Landry.
Carrie Whitman. Hi. Carla Borman.
Phil McDyke.
Jeremy Eaton. Matt Brunson.
Tim Reynolds. Ron Miller.
Thanks. Well, thanks a lot for being here this evening for the board workshop. As Matt has said, we started out, we've been in two of the elementary schools, and tomorrow we've been in the primary and in Free Will, and then we're going to be over to OE, and then we'll be in the middle school and the high school tomorrow, so we'll continue our reviews at that point. Just very quickly, just introductions from ourselves. Paul and I have been working on studies throughout the state. We do individual studies, we've done studies together, we've done a whole range of financial, programmatic, consolidation studies. We've done work in Vermont recently, so we've been in the state and outside of the state. Our backgrounds are teachers, principals, and superintendents, so we come with a lot of different perspectives as we look at the different issues that the schools are being faced with. It's important for...
And dog owners and husbands.
And dog owners and husbands.
And parents. Not net owners.
And horse owners and everything else. But what's really important for us, and it's why we're in the schools today, and I think this is probably the most important thing about how we conduct these studies, it's very important for us to be here, to be on site, to meet with you, to meet with your staff, to spend time in your schools. We're not the type of group that we gather data and information and then from afar we try and put it together and then send it out to you. We think that really what's important is that we get information, we get it together, and we get on site so we can see what the information leads to. We can really see what it's about, because it really is about getting into the schools, meeting staff, meeting the students, meeting parents, and all of that together. So for us, it provides us a much more comprehensive picture than if we just kind of sort of got the data and wrote it back.
And one of the things we've learned, I've done alone or with Doug, about 30 of these studies that answer a very similar question. The question that has been commissioned by the board in Mathis is, are there options that might provide more cost-effective ways or patterns to organize how the pre-K-12 program is implemented, delivered over the next 3 years? That's the study question. Forget my voice. I spent 2 days in Uniondale. We're finishing a study in Uniondale there. They have a different problem. They got kids coming out of their ears, and they have no space, and they don't know what to do. But it's the same. But it's the same study question. Honest to God. Okay. So anyway, so one thing we've learned: some people can. We cannot do any kind of study like this in a vacuum. This is not a study about buildings. It is not a study about brick and mortar. It's a study about program as delivered by the values of the school district. And we'll talk more about that a little later. So, tonight in this workshop, Planning for the Future, we're going to be asking this question. And Mathis and the board have decided that the board, as well as the senior administration, would be the best group to ask this question, and we're going to compile the information together over the next hour or so. If that's your study question, what are the key questions, data that your school community needs to answer, discuss about how best to organize and deliver the grades pre-K through 12 program over the next 3 years? So if that's your study question, well, gee, in order to answer that question, not by us, we're gonna help you, but in the end, by you and your community, what are the kinds of data, items, topics should your total community, along with you as the policy-making legislative body of the district, be able to have, discuss, analyze together? Okay? Think about that a second. So, and what we'll do is we're gonna do that first, and then after we're finished, we're gonna talk about the study a bit, as well as two preliminary data sets, baseline data sets that we've prepared in order for us to visit appropriately today and tomorrow. It's wonderful that we have guests from the community here. It's a great chance for you to watch your senior administrators and your board work together on a real question about, and to give guidance to two guest outsiders who've been engaged to try to help look at possible scenario options. Our job is not to recommend. Our study will not recommend anything to you. Why? It's your kids, it's your community, it's your money. However, our job is to hold up a mirror. My favorite example at this time of year is in my bathroom. I have a full-length mirror. And I look at that mirror and I'm not happy with what I see because I have my winter weight on. So, for me to complain to the mirror gets me nowhere. All right? So our job is to hold up this mirror to your data. Some folks in various roles, community as well as staff as well as board, may like the data they see, and some of the data, people will not like what they see. But it's your data. It is what it is. Honest, it's transparent, unmassaged. Now, Mathis probably has a smile on his face because one of the rules of being a good superintendent, you never, ever, ever massage data for your board. You organize it, you deliver it, but you never massage it. We have a lot of years, we made it. We made it to retirement successfully as two superintendents. So that lesson we have learned well. We will hold up a mirror, we will organize the data, but it will be and shall not be massaged. All right? And our goal is that the community, the board, the staff together have the same data as accurately as possible to have engaged discussion in a data-driven way. Don't misunderstand. We're talking about schools, very important, and can be emotional. The point we're trying to get across is it's very important not to remove the emotion in talking about what's best for children. On the other hand, just emotion, in our opinion, does not make for good identification of a long-term answer to a question. So, taking this and this, in our opinion, really does work. All right? Our job is bringing to the table this in organizing the data for you so you can have engaged discussion. Now, what does that all mean? Well, doesn't that sound nice, Paul? Well, we will proceed with the studies. You will see very soon after tonight, within 7 days of tonight, we will report on the results of this Planning for the Future workshop. We will ask Mathis to please post that online immediately to the community so the community can see, well, they can make their own judgment. Gee, if I was asked that question, yeah, I guess I would list all those things too. All right? In fact, you will see it again at the beginning of the study. This is how we begin the study. The reason we do this is it helps us, not in a vacuum, understand the context of the question, but also we have seen as a byproduct to this what we create tonight, and it's created before anybody leaves, okay? It also, in our experience, has become a great pattern for ongoing discussion by the community and the board. Like, these are the things we consider as important for us and Wayne to be able to address answers to this, possible answers to this question. So we teachers call that a rubric. I like to call it, really, it's just a pattern of how to have the conversation. So you're doing a lot than just meeting tonight doing this. So that goes online. Very soon after tomorrow, we will prepare, these are all separate studies, a pupil capacity study of your facilities, your 5 facilities. given your values about class size, given what you believe the program is that is expected to be delivered, what is the pupil capacity of each of your buildings, and how much of that pupil capacity is now currently used in the 2015-16 school year. Okay? Study. After that, tonight we'll do, this is preliminary, we're going to share with the board tonight and discuss it in public session, some preliminary calculations for enrollment projections. 2 baseline tools for any planning of any school district. Rich, poor, Arizona, New York, Florida, Vermont, is how many clients can we expect, that's children, can we expect to serve in the next 5 to 10 years, and how much pupil capacity we have to serve that expected number. There's one other piece, because next to the children themselves, the most important asset is the staffing hired by the board to serve children. But once you know the number of children, based on local values, you decide on the number of staff. But that staff has to work within some walls, all right? So that's why we leave the staffing judgments, rightly so, to the employer, the Board of Education, as well as the rest. But we give you insights with regard to your facilities and how many students, again, given your local values about class size and your local determination of what the program is, how many young people could you serve in your buildings? Okay? So that is a separate study, and that comes out, and we ask Mathis to get it online, get people at their leisure to start looking at that information. That enrollment projection study will also include an extensive section about demographics of your school district. Okay? From the federal census, the latest data available. There will be about 300 to 400 items. We will identify some items that typically boards use in their planning. Okay? One of them is median age of the district. I want to give it away why that's important, but you can guess why. All right? Poverty levels, family income, household income, number of people who live alone. Number of people who live alone are 65 years or older. How many households have residents 18 years or younger? How many households or percentage of households have folks who are don't have 18-year-old or younger residents? Okay? No value judgment, but data to engage yourselves in discussions about the future, the current condition and the future of Wayne Central, and what might be some variables that would influence future demographics. Not highfalutin, but pretty common sense. Like Grandma used to say, when in doubt, go common sense. So we give you some data that helps you begin that common sense discussion about, what might be the future outlook be for our Wayne Central School, the boundaries of Wayne Central School. Okay? So then the third piece is what we call the program delivery study, where we will take all the data we've gathered, including our observations, and we will make some suggestions of scenario options that are doable, not hypothetical, but doable options for you to consider. All right? And that becomes one of the main tools for your ongoing discussion. The other thing the board has asked us to do, as we've done in other districts, first of all, we will present that. We've gotten permission from Mathis and the board on a day that there'll be an evening community meeting where Doug and I will present the findings. It's not a board meeting, it's a community meeting where we present the findings. Okay? But in that afternoon, out of respect, the board is an employer also. They have a set of folks that are the employees of the district. We've asked permission, they've granted it for us to present the findings to all instructional support staff and all instructional staff who wish to come to a meeting after school where we'll present the findings. Don't misunderstand, they're welcome to come in the evening too. But it's just a respectful thing to do. All right? So we're going to do that. The final piece, we're just guest outsiders, by the way. The final piece of this a few weeks after we present the data, we've been, one of the elements that we do for lots of districts, we will host what is a community focus group on a Saturday from 8:30 to 2:30. You might say, why a Saturday? Well, people got kids, they got lives, they got jobs. That doesn't mean people don't work on Saturdays, but the goal is the bulk of folks would be available in their jeans and sweatshirt to come to work together from 8:30 to 2:30 on a Saturday. Now, this focus group is made up of folks that are appointed by the board. And how it's done is there's an application they will develop for people to apply to be considered to be part of the focus group. The focus group is made up of our very, very tight guidelines by us that it must be representative of the community of the whole. All right? They're parents at all grade levels. A staff member from each of the various, not each grade, but each grade band of grade levels. Clergy, business folks, empty nesters, retirees, people in their 30s who live in the district and don't have a family type household yet. Did I say that okay? A real broad range of folks that, if anybody looked at the categories, yes, these are the stakeholders that make up our community, Wayne Central School. Now, it could be we would hope it would be maybe at least between 36 and 54 people. So it's not just 2-3 people. Your district that would not represent the stakeholders of your district. And on that Saturday, the folks don't listen to us, in fact, quite the opposite. They listen and work with each other in a very structured format. A focus group is a real tool. You can go online and look at what it's about. It's really a scientific tool. You've seen it on TV where they, what show was it? I don't know, I was watching House of Cards. Did you see that, where they did the focus group to see if she could run for vice president? I love that show. They did a focus group. Remember that? Did you see that? That's a focus group, except we do it with a large group of people. Good, you saw it. Somebody saw it. Okay. Anyway, it's a real tool. It's a real tool. So what it does, it reflects in a microcosm what one could extrapolate that maybe the whole community might have the same perceptions. All right? So that gives you that tool. So you got the people capacity, you've got this tool from tonight, the people capacity tool, the enrollment tool, the program delivery tool, and the results. And what we do, the results are by us like a tape recorder and a movie camera. Remember, on massage, those are the rules. So you'll have all those tools, and then it's time for the guest outsiders to go home. Okay? So you'll have all those tools as a community to address not only the answer that we provided here are some possible scenarios of really the heart of the question is there a scenario or an adaptation of a scenario that might be best for our kids for the future? Or not? In America, doing nothing is a choice. But that's up to you. So that's our role. That's what we do. We do not walk on water. I know. We don't have a white horse, but in reality, he does own a white horse. He really does. Anyway. It's his horse. It's true. But he doesn't ride it here. No way. Okay. All right. All facetiousness aside. So, this is what we're going to do. Anybody born in August? Anybody born in July? Okay. Thanks, Ron. You're going to be first. What we're going to do, there's the question. What are the key questions, data, that our school community needs to answer, discuss about how best to organize and deliver the grades pre-K through program over the next 3 years? What we're looking for is an answer to what are the key questions, items or topics, however you want to look at it. You can state it as a question or an item. Doesn't matter how you do it. We need your brains on this to help us understand, and frankly, it'll help everybody. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to go round robin. Okay, and if it gets to be, for example, Tim, if it gets to you and you want more time to think, just say pass. That's okay. But Ron, don't you do that. No, you can. You can if you want, but I trust you won't. Anyway, And that was not by, it just so happened the board president's July. I should have picked a different month. I usually don't start with the board president. But anyway, and then we're gonna go round robin, and we're gonna go around and around till everybody passes. You might say, oh my God, Paul, we're gonna be here to midnight. Trust me, you'll know when the cake is done. You know that song, you know? You will know when the cake is done. I won't tell you, he won't tell you, but you'll know, all right? And then we'll do something with your work to rank order them very quickly, but very, very powerfully. Because all of them are important. We're not gonna do any synopsis, we're not gonna reduce things. Everything that's up there is gonna appear in this document, but we're gonna rank order them with you. All of them are important, but there'll be items that probably are more important than other items to address in this list. Fair enough? So no idea will be lost. That's important. All right? Everybody got it?
And I'm gonna give Ron just a minute more to think
To
about
think.
his, because there's one last thing I just wanted to mention to the residents who are here this evening. Just to clarify this, everything that we do and every data point and information that we gather that we publish and get to the board will be the same thing that you will have. So every part of the study, there's nothing different. So there's not a synopsis or anything else that goes to the board and then you get something different. You get the same thing that they do. And you get that in a completed form, which is why the document got passed out to you earlier. The reason we had to bring it back in is because we don't get those documents out to you until they're done, reviewed, and 100% accurate. What we actually gave you tonight was a working document that we're dealing with right now to try and get some numbers together.
And it's already inaccurate because we went to 2 buildings and we
Yeah,
found some
already
data
saw
that
some
it was
changes with it.
was not accurate. So, anyway.
But for the public and for your friends, you know, those of you that are here and you know, go home and talk to your friends about it, we think that it's really important that every single thing that the rest of the district gets, you get. And the other part that we think is really important when we do the community presentation, even though we could do PowerPoint, we've certainly done it before over the years, what we believe in is that you should have the full study, that it should be in a printed format, and that you should have access to all the research appendices to it. So when you come to the meeting, what you will get is the actual completed full study that you can write on, you can take home, you can think about it, you can use it to ask more questions. We also will have printed a certain number of the appendices, which is, you know, about this thick, which is all the background data. And for anybody that wants to take that and peruse that and see what that's all about, you can do that also. But for us, what's critical for you as the public to know from us coming in here to do the work, that you get the same thing, the same amount, the same quality as everybody else gets. And that to us is really, really, as a baseline, is extremely important to us. So Ron gave you a little bit extra time to think, and now we're going to go ahead. I'll start. Great.
Perhaps you already do this, but it's part of the enrollment projection data.
Good. What might the future enrollments be? Is that okay?
Well, I was gonna go a little deeper than that. I would also be interested in a distribution analysis of where that enrollment is.
That may be difficult. That's not totally possible because there is no data to show where particular, for example, we will know how many, we have a history, including up to the very most current year that's available, how many births were in the district.
But you don't have a distribution of where they live.
There is no record
Okay.
held by the state health department or even local. No one has that. So to honor that, we can't. Okay? It's just not possible. But what may be future, what might the future enrollments look like for Wayne Center? Good. Tim?
I think would be good data to have is, we just worked on the strategic planning committee, and there was a diverse group of stakeholders there, and all that data was pretty important that the committee came up with, so a lot of the stuff was in there.
Okay, so how,
It's kind of duplicating something.
no, how, not, well, yes or no. Okay, how, again, change, this is, don't even put words in your mouth. So if it's not right, just say no. We're a big. How does our strategic plan affect the program scenarios, options. You know?
Some of the choices that were made, that was
Oh, yeah.
priorities. I mean, there was a lot of data involved in making those choices, and some
How
of
does that connect to what the study's going to be
No.
overtaking?
How about this? The scenario options should reflect our strategic plan elements.
correct.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
If not, you can always back and cross it off. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
There, it's a statement instead of a question. How's that? All right? Okay.
Well, from our projected enrollment data, I'd like to know how much is special needs, how much is needed enrichment, and where students fall in that data.
Help me understand that further.
Well, we have a population of students that are special needs, we have a population of students that are below the road, we have a population of students that need enrichment, like IB and advanced placement and that type of thing. So what would be the number of students
Yeah,
needing all that, or? is that-
We're good, but we can't project that. Because, for example, we don't know the child born at Wayne and will come to Wayne, will they be in a high need 411 somewhere, or will they be your valedictorian? There's no database to make an assumption about that. So unfortunately, we can't do
Use your
that.
previous years to project the next years?
Not really, especially with special ed. Current year placement of kids really can't project what the placement of those young people, because the goal of special ed is that children get declassified and go into the normal. So, really, again, we will tell you what we can do, and we can tell you what we can't do. That we can't do. But if folks assume that we can't, that we together can't see any variable that would affect a change in the pattern, see, in other words, we've identified nothing that would change the pattern. All right? And let me give you a real example. Rome City, for example, many years ago had a prison come to the community. And this is not to overgeneralize, but that impact of a new, in essence, job center and environment in the community did affect the traditional patterns of the type of in need of student that they served. So unless we can point to some variable that would influence the demographic of Wayne Central, we couldn't even hypothesize. You see why?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so, but, I can't.
Would you like to know the history at least, of what we?
Well, yeah, that's what I thought it would be, that's what I thought it would be
So
based
tell
on.
where we at today, where we were last year with those and the year ago?
With some of that, so a reflection of our current special need population, is that okay? How's that?
Special needs and
Special
enrichment.
needs, okay.
And enrichment.
And enrichment. Okay, good, we got it, thank you.
That's what I thought that would work.
Jeremy.
Your turn.
Thank you.
That's all right, you wanna pass? Come back? It's up to you.
Would it be, how, if we're utilizing our special program, like Matt said, the AP, the IB and all of those, how could we best utilize those seats? Are we filling them to the best of our ability as a district for what we're paying for? Are all the kids getting, that can have the opportunity to take advantage of those programs, are we doing that? Because we have a ton of programs. I'm just always one that says, how do we make sure every single kid that has
No,
them?
it's not accessibility.
Almost more like,
Okay.
are we being efficient with
Well,
our programming?
Cost effective.
how many young, all right, how many young people can we serve in our current programs? And how many young people do we have enrolled in those programs?
Yes,
That's what you're saying.
yes.
Right?
Perfect, thanks for stealing my only.
What do you think about that? Does that work, Jim? Jim?
Jeremy.
Jared, oh, forgive me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's always something on my mind is, are we getting enough?
Take a look at, let him write it and see if that hits it. If not, hey, paper's cheap, so we'll fix it. But I think that's what,
So Jeremy, how many students can we serve, and how
In our-
many are actually enrolled in our in our program?
It could be any
Can we serve
program. I don't
in-
care
in
if it's
various
tech programs and art programs and.
In various programs.
Okay.
Primarily, you're looking at the secondary level?
Yeah, or it would be any of the programs.
Okay.
Various programs.
Because if we're paying for them, I just
And how
assume
many-
we have
And how many
as
are
kids
actually
as
enrolled?
we can.
2015. That's all we can do is 2015, 16.
Okay.
We can't prejudge, again, like we said earlier. We don't know if the child who statistically takes the place of your valedictorian will also be your valedictorian, or maybe one of the most highly needy children that you've ever had. We don't know that. We shouldn't assume either way, right? Okay, good. Good one. Greg,
Pass.
okay? Phil?
I only had one good idea, and both Matt and Jeremy took it. So, but I do totally agree with that. I think I had worded it a little different, but I think after it was massaged.
No, that's called wordsmithing, no.
That's the same thing Mathis says to us.
No.
All right, so I have some others that are probably
Okay.
not as cerebral. So, I don't even know, first of all, I don't even understand the question. This feels like some sort of wild exercise of super smart people, and I don't belong in this room. So,
Of course you do.
but how do we, there's an element of students that are graduating or are going to graduate or that aren't college bound. Are we sure that we're serving them, and are we sure that we're reaching them, and are we sure that we're providing them programs to lead to success without college? Is that even, am I even on track here?
No, you
Or
are,
am I
but not
out?
for this study. That is a program study. Even if we were not engaged to do this study, because you're facing potential, again, one of the general reasons why we were engaged is that you may be facing high revenue losses from taxes.
That was another one I wrote
You may be experiencing, you got it, like we started. Well, how many clients? Again, schools are not businesses, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be business-like. And one of those issues is, how many clients are we gonna serve? Okay? So, but your question, regardless, say everything was hunky-dory and the checkbook was unlimited, that question is an outstanding program question regardless. So this study won't address that.
Okay, well, the other one.
It can't, you see why it can't?
So it's not gonna address the finances as well, because that was another thing that I had written down with the potential loss of the county tax, and with the potential either loss of revenue from Gannett or the closing, finances would immediately come into play with how we organize and deliver product to our
Right,
students.
but it will. In fact, it will. Each scenario option will have an estimate analysis of the financial impact of doing that scenario. In essence, what might be the cost savings from the various scenarios. So that it will do. So with your permission, what might be the cost benefit of each of the possible scenario options the study suggests? That will happen.
Okay.
And that will happen. Okay? Does
All right.
that help?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Carla?
First, I just had a question.
Sure,
of
go
this.
ahead.
It says, with our question, it said 3 years. Who picked 3 years? Is
That
that
was the
usually what you
engagement.
do?
Well,
Because these 3 years to me seems like tomorrow.
it is.
It's not like long range enough,
Right,
I
no,
guess.
it's
This would be
soon.
more long range. But
It's
that's
soon.
not my question.
But in the end, the scenario options, certainly you can look at a 3-year range or a 5-year range. Either way, typically it's 3 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, my question was, how, we do a census here every year. I'd like to know how accurate, and are we using the best way to get our census information? Because I sometimes kind of think that we're lacking there. We don't really get, are there more kids out there that we don't know about until they show up for kindergarten?
Well, we're not going to use your census data in this study, so we can't address the accuracy of that, because we're not using your census data at all with regard to our studies. However, We can add, what we can do you do a pre-K, do you do a K spring registration? Okay, we can add this data set. What we can do, see, it's a study of patterns. There are no smoke and mirrors in this. It's common sense study of patterns. And there's one thing about schools, we have a pattern in everything we do. We start school in September, we end school in June. We pay bills once a month, and we pay salaries. We pay salaries twice a month. I mean, you look at all the patterns we have, and that's exactly what we're looking at with live births, comparing it to the pattern of the number of kids who show up in September, and also the enrollments of each grade level. What we can do is offer this pattern to you, which cannot answer what you're asking. That really is almost like that curriculum question, evaluating how you do census. In fact, many schools have given up doing census. It used to be the most accurate way to do census is the way we did it. I'm showing my age. The way we did it in the 80s, we would hire the bus drivers to work in the summer.
Go door to door.
They would go door to door with a predetermined script, really predetermined script of questions with ID, advertise it to the community that these are the people coming, and there was a byproduct to that, because in all honesty, the secretaries of a school and the bus drivers of a school probably interact more with parents and kids than anybody else in the school district, including the superintendent, on a daily basis. So there was a value to that. That was a byproduct. The cost of doing that has gotten so exorbitant that we've gone to like sampling or filling out the emergency card or whatever else. Unfortunately, that's a side note to your question. But what we can do, if you have multiple years of spring data, I'll give you a chart, a tool. You give us the results of that. Let's see what that pattern is compared to who shows up in September. It won't give you exact answers, but in that pattern, it might show just the cultural reality that folks either, for some reason, wait till August, whatever reason, and it might be a lot of reasons. We'll suggest some reasons for that. Or they're not here in the spring. They're literally not here, and they don't come into the summer, and they show up last minute. So some schools have gone to a spring registration, and some have done it again like in July. One more time before waiting till August. It's not an answer, but it could show a pattern. We can do that if you want.
Well, I just was wondering about our projection, like how many 2-year-olds are out there, how many,
Well, the live birth data we have will tell you that. We can't say if they moved, they're still here or not, but that pattern of live births is pretty credible and valid. So if you want, we could do that. That would be interesting to see if there is a connection between the pattern of who shows up for spring registration and who shows up, whatever. If it's a consistent pattern that 90% show up at spring registration of those who show up in September, I'm just guessing, on a consistent pattern. It won't tell you why they waited, but what it does show, if it shows that kind of pattern, then now in spring, you can have a better guess of how many really might show up in September. It's a study of patterns, okay?
What might help also is that as you look at that, when you look at the enrollment projections that we have, one of the data charts that you'll see is that we have your live birth data for kindergartners for a particular year.
Yeah.
And then we also have with that, for that same particular year, how many students actually enrolled. And so what you'll see with the patterns, you'll see some years that you might have had 140 kids that were on the docket for live births that are coming into kindergarten, yet your kindergarten enrollment was 170, which means you had a substantial number of people, for one reason or another, move in.
Within that time.
And you'll see that pattern of what's going on over the years, and you'll see where that's at in 2015, 2016. So that information, coupled with this information, will give you more insight into what's happening on an annual basis with your kindergarten enrollment.
That might
So
help.
I think that'll help with that part that you just talked about.
So, excuse me, does everybody understand the live birth piece? Just want to make sure. Okay.
I know it sounds odd, like, why didn't you say births? Because that's the term that the health department uses.
Right.
Believe it or not, that's their work. Live births versus, so that's why, forgive me, we use the real term.
Well, that's
The health department who supplies the data. So I know that sounds odd, but that's what it is, okay? So.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the
I'm
connection.
sorry.
Having trouble
Oh, my
understanding.
God.
Siri doesn't have a question.
That's great, I love it.
You were cheating.
Yeah, asking Siri the question.
Siri, what do I say now?
Let's see, I'm trying to figure out how to word this, kind of how, from a cost-effective standpoint, how to deliver a great curriculum with continual changes. You know, 1 year it's Common Core, then we're changing this, that, you know what I mean, with the continual changes within the state and what the expectations are, and what the requirements are, how to do it financially effectively, and at the same time, you know what I mean, be financial, but also at the same time provide a quality program without burning all our staff and resources out.
Well, in many ways, you already have that answer by the values that we've been given that guide how you deliver the program. For example, we know that the district values in K through 3, right? 19 children per class. That's what you value. And then 25 children per class starting in grade 4. So that really is the measurement by which you would make decisions about how much staff resource it would take to deliver the instruction, I guess. See, I think I'm answering your question.
I'm not necessarily talking about enrollment as much as program. So, you know what I mean, like, so in the last couple of years, it's been, Common Core has been rolled out, then we have new testing, and then, you know, teachers are needing more time.
Study
You know,
can't do that.
They can't, okay.
Study can't do that. We will analyze, though, how you are deploying your staff currently.
Okay.
We will do that. And there will be some observations and possible suggestions of how you might want to look at it differently. That will do. That will do.
Sounds good.
Well, that, we're only telling you what we can do, not because we don't want to, it's just,
Right.
again, right? Part of transparency is being what you really can do and not just, you know, fluffy, whatever, so, okay?
Are we maximizing the class size of all of our classrooms, but also making sure that academically we're still successful? So I know we have 19 kids in the class. Are we maximizing that? for grade level?
What are the class size, section sizes across the district?
Mhm.
What are the class section sizes across the district? Okay, right? As compared to the class size goals,
Mhm.
right? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
In other words, if 19 is our goal, are we going on average of 12 somewhere?
Right, right.
Or are we really at the 19? Is that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I was just wondering about configurations. It's something that we haven't looked at. We've had a K2 building, a 3-5 building, a K5 building, a middle school. Are there better ways, more efficient ways to look at something like a couple of K3 buildings, a middle school a little bit younger, a 4, 5, 6, a junior high? You know, what are better ways to organize? You know, because it kind of goes with the curriculum. Better ways to organize our staff and our children with our buildings.
Are there other ways to configure how we serve grade levels?
Mm-hmm.
How's that? Without mentioning the
Right.
building, who knows?
Exactly.
Are there other better ways to configure
Mm-hmm.
how we serve grade levels?
Right.
You could use the same buildings,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
How do we maximize the use of our facilities?
Well,
And
Okay.
teachers, for that matter, which is kind of what you said. And, you know, I'd like to expand on that just a little bit if I can. We have had, in the past, a project that went down as far as closing 2 schools and building onto our one primary school and having a one central campus. I think that there's other ways we could do this, utilizing what we have without doing any new
okay,
buildings.
so are we using the pupil capacity we have effectively? Is that okay?
Efficiently, yeah.
Are we using the pupil capacity we now have effectively?
Mhm.
Is that okay?
That's good, but I mean, also the facilities. You know, are we using the facilities?
That's it.
That's what pupil capacity is.
Okay.
No, really, no, don't misunderstand. Don't get me wrong. For example, the two elementary buildings we saw today outstanding, you got 2 gyms in each. I know that sounds like, God, Paul gets excited about things. You know how unusual that is? Okay, seriously.
Right.
The sizes of the classrooms in the 2 buildings, particularly one of them, are like well over the minimum of 770. These are guest outsiders looking at things that maybe you don't look at every day. You know how unusual that is? All right? So, yeah, we're gonna take into account more than people's capacity because there's some things we've already observed that, like, wow, that you have that really maybe, well, we'll point out an observation that, like, wow, it's good stuff. Okay? Okay, Pam?
I was thinking, are we using, part of it was in another question, I think,
Sure.
are we using staff efficiently, the number of staff we have, are we using them efficiently, or, I don't want to say effectively, because they are effective, but efficiently with the number of students we have, as well as like central office, just our staffing?
Well, are we deploying instruction, are we deploying our building staff efficiently? Is that okay?
Well, and I even think, central office, is there a better way to,
Configure.
but well, kind of like configure, but, are we being as efficient as we can with the jobs that have to be done with the people we have to do them? Does that make sense?
We can do that with the buildings, because it's really, remember, this is a program study, because if you look
Okay.
at the study question,
See, are we able to?
organize how the pre-K program is implemented and delivered. Don't get me wrong, your central office senior administrators are key to delivering the program.
Correct.
However, there isn't direct service to children. Your judgment of what kind of resource you need from the end of, in support of those who deliver, really is not part of the study.
Okay, so it
But
would just be the
it's
staffing
the
with.
building in delivering directly to children. This is all about,
Okay.
don't get me wrong, these folks work as hard as anybody assigned to the buildings. But it really comes down to your judgment of what kind of central support those folks
Okay, so
in the
I didn't
buildings
know if
need.
it was going to look at, everything that we provide as a district.
Yeah, this is not an audit like those, that, what's his name, the comptroller, he sends in people that just graduated and they're telling boards and districts how to run their districts. Anyway, I'm sorry, this is not one of those studies. Okay, it's just not, all right. So,
Okay.
but that can happen, okay?
Sure. One of the things we talked about in our strategic plan was our birth to pre-K. So I just wonder if we might have the capacity to better meet that demographic. The birth to pre-K.
Okay. So, okay, how might the various programs allow us to deliver or to achieve the birth pre-K strategic plan? Okay?
Sure.
And last but not least, Vance?
Let's see. Key questions that our school committee needs to answer. So I think we kind of got some of those. How are we deploying staff? Enrollment is important to understand enrollment, life birth history information. Just in general, what are the key questions? The numbers we have now compared to the numbers we'll have in the future. Those are just questions that I'm interested in.
All right. What is the gap between the current enrollment
Right.
and estimated enrollments for the future?
Yes.
Is there a gap between the current enrollment and future enrollments of the future?
And how does that relate to our space?
And how does that relate to the space? You got that, Doug? Good job. Ron?
On the census data that you're going to
Yes.
provide, will we also get trends with that? Will you give us more than 1 year?
In a way, it is, and let me explain that. The best data that's available, it's published in December, the best data we have concerning school districts is in December of 2015. What that is from the federal census, that takes, they statistically look at the previous 5 years, including 2015.
Okay.
So in essence, what you're getting and that we'll be reporting is a compilation of that. It's not just 1 year.
Okay.
It's the pattern over the previous 5 years. Because things can happen fast, but more often than not, when it comes to as large even as the population is, they're a larger population, don't get me wrong, things actually turn pretty slowly in our culture. That's why we do a census only every 10 years, because it takes time so what the data you're gonna get is based on a 5-year look back
Okay.
of the census, so, all right?
But what it won't tell us is whether 5 years ago, the number of households that had no children in school was substantially higher or lower, or just shows that
Well,
5-year trend.
okay, I guess let me think here. Can do, not in all 300, because some of the census data have changed.
Okay.
For example, a new element of the census data that wasn't looked at before is how many households are headed up by females without a male partner. Our cultures have changed, okay? That data wasn't available. But what I can do on some of these key points, I can go back to the 2010 census, which is a matter of record, show what it was in 2010, and then show you what it is based on the federal census published as of December 15th. How's that? So, what is the comparison between 2010 census and the 2015 census estimate on some key demographic characteristics? How's that?
That works.
You got it. See why this is important? That wasn't part of the study proposal, but doesn't matter. That's something that maybe that could help, so let's do it. Fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, looking to answer the question as far as program goes, unless we discussed the strategic planning, so reading levels of students entering our school and after the first few years are very important to
Yep.
our success on our test scores and all
Yep.
that, so some way to wordsmith.
Now, he's got to do that for you. Study can't do that. He's got to do that for you, because you have that data, or your test data. That's a great question. It's really outside of what this study does.
I was just looking at how to best organize and deliver the program.
Well-
Looking at that data, well, if it says what we need to do to understand it, we need, where we need to work, you know.
You're right, but it's outside the confines of all the other variables that this study has to look
Right,
at.
no.
From enrollment projections to your facilities that you have, are you, like for example, the question there, are we utilizing our staff, given our values, are we deploying staff to match those values, which is, remember the class section things? We can do all of that. That's an excellent question, but it is so finely focused, only your program people can do that. Yeah.
Board, please just keep in mind, I'm taking notes on all the things that may not be a part. So this study is doing a lot around efficiencies. How might we be better efficient with our staff? How might we look at our cost and what we're doing in terms of each of our programs, and in terms of just how we're using staff. So the study's gonna look at how we might be better efficient. But those other items that are here, I'm taking them down. So I heard about census, Common Core, reading, and so as we move through, please know that we'll also take a look at those things, but a little different from this study piece here.
Yeah, and I think your folks, for example, it's very impressive that the reading program you're using, okay? Reading recovery. It's impressive that you have that, for a lot of reasons. It is, research has shown that it's very successful, but also is one of the most costly ways to do reading. So you have to judge that. Are we getting the benefit for our children? Which is, again, reading recovery research is outstanding. It really works. It really does. What you're asking, does it really work here? And is it cost benefit for children? For our children, is it, as an example, is it really producing what the general research says it should? That's kind of tied to what you were saying. That focused kind of study really belongs with your program people and you and your principals.
And Paul, that's a program analysis that Joe can look at.
Oh, God, yes.
Take
Yes.
the children who have been involved in reading recovery and look at what's happened to them over the years to see how they've been able to get out of the program,
Right.
what type of test results they've had on an annual basis, so you can,
I bet you have that
you
data.
can
Yeah,
then
we
ascribe
have it every year.
their success to a
Yeah.
monetary value.
That's why I mentioned it. I know you have that data.
Results.
That's a real good example.
Yeah.
And that's, well, again, you can see we've tried to observe everything. That's commendable that you were, to the extent you are doing clinics, providing recovery as a prime way to deliver reading instructions to children who need help. I'll tell you, good for you.
So I'll go off on next.
Okay.
Are we looking at, from what other people said, the distribution of the students that we have throughout the community? You know, or especially at the lower levels, where's the population at?
Well, what we can do,
Distribution.
in fact, we talked about it today, how we're gonna be able to address that, because you have some unique geographics in this. What I mean by unique, of the placement of where your buildings are with regard to the boundaries of the district. So in fact, we talked about that today. We met with your team. I wanted to particularly meet your transportation director. For example, given what we saw, again, that's why we visit. You know, we can read all we can interview Mathis through the phone. You gotta be here and see this and really begin to understand this. We've worked with districts with similar patterns where you have, you got a cluster of buildings and then you have one that's not so clustered. So what's the relationship of that positioning of those buildings to the geographics of the district, but also, for example, we look at various configurations. One of the things we wanted to get to know your transportation director. You already utilize TransFinder, the software. We're not gonna do routing, that's not what it's about. But TransFinder can help us do some what ifs. If this, whatever this is, particular building serve this grade level configuration, what might the boundary of that school district be in order to fill the building given the class size goals of the district? That we can do. So you see, that makes sense. So it's not like shoot from the hip. So if we know, for example, I'm going to do something really hypothetical and really dumb. We're only going to use this building for kindergarten. Well, that's the whole district. So that would give you a map of the whole district. So that's why I said it that way. But we'll do that. We'll do that. Because we know how many young people can be served in that building, right? Given your values. That's what it's telling us. I'm not telling you that. So therefore, if it served this grade level configuration, what might be that boundary around that building? In essence, how far out would we go to fill that building with that grade configuration? That we can do. How's that? Okay. With the help of, and I know we can because we talked to him today. He's good at it. All right. But it's not rooting. No, that's down the road. Once you make a decision, you will root, you'll do, all that stuff. But you gotta have some kind of what if. We can do that with his help. How's that?
Great.
Okay. So, for various scenarios, what might be the catchment area? Can we use that term, or what do you want term? You tell me what term to use to describe that.
I think catchment.
What might be the boundary, the school, the attendance area boundary? What might be the attendance area boundary for a particular configuration? How's that? Did I get to it? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Matt?
Yes.
That's okay. Jeremy?
Mine was the transportation, so I'm gonna pass.
Well, is there something else that we?
No, just about the district and if we're at the best possible setup for transporting kids to and from wherever they.
Well, that's not what that question does. See, transportation it's like brick and mortar. This is not an architectural brick and mortar study. This is not a transportation study. It's a program study. So a byproduct of looking at the scenarios, the focus is what might be best for our children. Transportation is in support of the program, not the other way around. The program is not in support of transportation. So that won't do what I think you're referring to. It won't evaluate, might that scenario be the least costly for transportation. It will not do that because it's focused on program delivery. Don't misunderstand. You're absolutely right. Every penny helps because it's public money and you don't have a blank check. So that would be a consideration as you look at various scenarios concerning what transportation might be necessary. But it won't be it'll be a subset of the scenarios.
Right, and so
Okay.
we have another group, part
Right.
4 of our study, TAS, that will
Right.
answer that question for you, Chair.
Yeah, and probably, well, right, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Does that help? I want to make sure, because that's a real important thing you brought up. But, again, it's in support of the program delivery, not the other way around. And I know you're not saying it, but you can't lose that thought. That's a good point. Greg?
Not sure how to word this, but, what should be the driving factor for, I would say, like building location? Should it be populace of homes? Should it be town boundary lines? Should it be the age of the building? How do you take all those factors into consideration? Gets to, maximum utilization of our resources, but looking at it from those areas, I guess.
How's this? Are there characteristics of our current buildings that I gotta say it's more simpler. What factors should we determine in deciding how a particular building should be configured to serve students?
Yes.
It sounds more general than what you're getting at, but for example, one of the data sets that will be in the study are the results of your building condition survey. Why do we do that? Well, when we do studies like this, we always, especially in a district, there are some factors here. One, you have declining enrollments. Two, you have X amount of pupil capacity. All right? That's the reality. The gap between your current enrollment and the pupil capacity you have is this. Given the enrollment projections, the preliminary ones for the future, the gap will be a little bigger. Okay? So therefore, as we look at scenarios, right? It looks like you'll have more pupil capacity in the future than the enrollment that you estimated to have. So that gap gets bigger in the future. You have to judge if it's big or if it's bigger. You have to judge that. That's your business. You're the board. And is it livable? Is it not livable? Not for us to say. Okay? So, saying all of that, that's why we look at some of these very clinical things. We always pray for it. It never happens. Because districts doing this kind of planning are pretty judicious, and they're also very responsible. Let me explain what we try to look for. Because boards who do this kind of study already are pretty responsible, so they don't let what I'm going to describe to you happen. We always look for a building that, oh my God, everybody thinks ought to be closed. That's not the case in your district. And why is that? That's not by chance, I don't think. You see what I'm getting at? So you got 4 viable facilities, no matter what happens with enrollments and pupil capacity. 5. You have 5 viable buildings. There isn't one that, if you did a survey of the next 10 people who went by the school, they would say, oh my God, why are we still in that building? That's not the case. So that's going to be part of the dilemma. You have 5 buildings, none of them are at that state. Does that help you? So, but what we do is provide data, like what do the latest building condition surveys say? What does the building condition survey suggest that you've done with your engineer, that over the next 5 years, how much might you have to pour into a building to keep it maintained as an asset? Does that answer the full question? But it helps get you there to have to make some decisions, maybe. You don't have to make it, but it helps you get there, okay? We will ask you, what is the capital debt that you have on all of your buildings? And when does that capital debt run out? That's another element, okay? If there's a building where the capital debt ends in 3 years, not that that makes it a prime candidate, but that's an element to consider. To consider that building may or may not be the one that you would continue to use if you were looking at not using all your buildings. You see how it goes? So that's the best we can do, provide you with those kind of data, all right? Because even in the end, even if you had a building that was run down and terrible, there are other values that go into it besides condition of the building, right? Because the board and the community always have the right to, let's take that building. No, that building there are other needs we're trying to develop with that. We're going to pour this much into it to make it a premier asset. That's your business, not ours. Does that help? Okay.
I just want to make sure I captured it, because I distilled it down. I wrote, what factors should we consider in examining how a particular building is utilized or not?
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's very good, thank you.
Hi, Philip, it's your turn again.
I think I'll look for some direction from you on how I want to articulate this, but
Go ahead, just say it.
how about something along the lines of looking at the programs and the courses that we do currently have and that we're offering our students, are they as up-to-date as they should be? And I think what I'm trying to get at is, are we efficiently training our staff with in-services and conferences, and are we making sure that our staff is as well trained as they should be for, like, the IB courses?
That's one of those program things that's an in-house
Seem to
job.
be good. I should be on the program study instead.
Well, in all honesty, you really, in our opinion, that really is an in-house study. I don't think you need an outsider to do that.
Okay.
Because think of what you've asked. Excellent question with you asked, but so value-laden that an outsider doesn't have the perspective or the knowledge or the insights that only local people describe. Are we getting effective staff development time? Okay? That was like one of the, are we getting whatever for that? There's so much, how do you again, only locally can you decide how to measure that. We got X many districts that we have all these people who participated in this and they did this, they define it that way. I think you want something deeper. So fine, we did that. Did we get a benefit for children because we did that?
Right.
That involves every kind of student database and evaluations, you name it, that only you would have access for in your district. Does that
make sense?
Okay?
Yeah.
In my opinion, no, right, Doug? No guest outsider could really.
Well, yeah, now I'm just thinking of, there's like hundreds of examples, so it might be if you have, you don't have it here, but in some places, you might have an elementary school that has a traditional, K-6 program. And then perhaps you have another elementary school that, based upon, parents and parental choice, it's a looping program. So it's a K1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so you want to look at those programs to see, based upon the way those programs have been set up, how effective are they? So you can take that information, you can analyze it, and you can see how you think it's working and what may or may not be more cost effective. If you move your special ed kids into a fully integrated setting where you haven't done it before, you can look to see what type of factors were involved in it before, what type of success. Now, if they're integrated, you can start to follow them over time and see how well that's working. So that there's all kinds of things that you can look at that your staff can examine, and then you can look at it as the board, as you do, as far as the effectiveness of the program, the support it does for kids, and then bottom line, what's the cost effectiveness of those programs. And then that's where, Mathis can help you get that information and look at it and to see, is this something that we continue with, we make adaptations to, we drop, or whatever.
In fact,
those are
because you've been at it a while, to model how you might want to answer that, look at your reading recovery data, which I'm sure is longitudinal, over many years,
Yeah.
that would be a great model to look at. Gee, what data do we have of that? It's a low-hanging fruit, because it's,
Yeah.
in all likelihood, it's very successful. So what's wrong with that? Let's start there, all right? And because it really is, your question is a real longitudinal kind of thing, not a snapshot. All right, you might want to start there in that kind of question, and that could model your review of the IB program and others.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Carla?
There are a lot of people who went to school here, came back, raised their family here, and asked me all the time, Carla, when I was in that building, we had 1,100 kids,
Yeah.
and now you've had 2 expansions, and you're talking about the high school. You know, how is that all being used, the room? And I know Bob kind of said, and that's what I was thinking is, are our buildings, you know, numbered correctly? You know, could we shift? Could we do that to, you know, maybe we have a building that's aging out or whatever. But my thing is, you know, in the high school, everybody has their own classroom. Where I know in other districts, they have an office and then you share classrooms and it utilizes, you have more rooms to use. So I kind of wondered, like, how in-depth do you look at your
Well,
secondary?
we're going to visit your high school tomorrow, and we'll
Right.
observe that, and we'll make
But
notation
in
of
my
that.
middle school too, you
Yeah,
know.
the middle
there's-
school too.
There's and both schools have a lot less kids for the amount of rooms. And I know things have changed, we have computers, we have bigger science labs, I know a lot of that. But I gotta kind of look at what people are saying is, you know.
The answer is yes,
Okay.
seriously.
That's a big concern of mine, is are we, you know, do we have one teacher with 4 kids and using up a whole classroom, or, you know, that we can use for,
Based on our,
like Bob said, moving some grade levels or doing something different like that?
well, the answer is
Well,
yes.
I think, I was just pointing out to Paul that, you know, the question's in number 9, and then, you know, with what you're talking about, but then we will look at that and see. So as an example, we don't know this right now, but is it a practice in the district, say in the middle level in the high school, actually even in the elementary schools?
Yeah.
You know, is it a practice when teachers have prep times that their classroom is not available for other programs? You know, in some places that's the way it is. You know, so if a teacher has a prep in a study hall or whatever, then, you know, their class is not available to other places. Other districts, they look at the classroom and they look to see how it can most efficiently be used, and so that classroom from 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock is being utilized for instruction. And anything else that's of a non-instructional nature, that has to be done someplace else.
We'll look at that.
We'll look at it.
But we'll also look at even something, in fact, in the pupil capacity study. You'll see at the beginning, today's worksheet, the draft that we're using in our visits. For example, in one of the buildings we were in today, physical therapy is in a room that's about 850 square feet, which is large enough to serve a grade level section. In another elementary building we were there in today, PT is being served in a more typical sized room for such services of about 425. So, is a principal doing something wrong? No, because all of your principals so far are doing what we learned, and math is learned, and your principals learned in day 1 of principal school. 1, never turn the lights off to a space. 2, never turn into storage. And 3, always use any and all space you have in some way to support children. That's exactly what we saw in 2 of your buildings. But in direct answer to your question, if the one building had more enrollment, that room that is now 850 square feet being used for PT would not have PT in it. You see where we're going? We will point that out, all right? So there's that level plus the level that Doug just talked about. Are there other ways to deploy the space where we get more mileage out of the space? We will do that too, okay? Okay,
Well, I
good.
gotta follow.
Yes.
Just a question, sometimes, and I've seen this firsthand,
Yeah.
the most efficient use of space, it doesn't create the best working environment, so something to look at.
Oh, we will. We'll point out any spaces that are deficient from our point of view as educators. We haven't found any yet. There are only 2 buildings. We haven't.
Well, I mean, if you get, I've noticed, sometimes you'll get kids in the classroom every time, but sometimes putting the teacher out of that classroom is detrimental to the whole day.
For whom?
For their planning and for the state of, if you got a chemistry and you're set up for classes and then you gotta tear it down or something.
Oh, okay,
those types
sure,
things.
of
But,
course, right.
Those are probably overcrowded situations where you try to do it, but there's probably a middle road in
Oh,
there.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and
In the
that's-
example you just
that's a
showed,
great
absolutely.
example.
That is like,
Right.
that's a primary example where that wouldn't be appropriate. On the other hand, I'm an English teacher, and my colleague, French teacher, okay? Would it be inappropriate for my colleague, French teacher, a language arts teacher, as well as me as an English teacher, to share a common classroom? You have to make that value judgment. But it's certainly different than what you described about that science experiment for chemistry set up that probably took that teacher an hour to set up. Notice I didn't give you an answer to my language example, but I'm trying to give you a, right? Okay? Great point, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay? So we got a yes there. See? I get tired of saying this won't do that. This will do that. All right? Please. Pass.
Are there better or other ways to reconfigure or restructure the school day, or actually the daily building schedules?
Are there better ways? Okay.
You got me.
Chairman, that one's for you.
A lot of districts are
Great.
looking here, but it's the sports that kills them. The sports that you don't have to go. They're boring. We looked at
All right, so I wrote down for you then, are there other or better ways to reconfigure the school day? And that's
Right.
that's a good one.
Our schedules now drive everything, whether they're an 82-minute, or it's an ABC day, or it's a Monday through Friday. Can we be more efficient if we had similar
Right.
schedules and
Right.
be able to do more for kids?
Right. Because really, what you're talking about, if you take elementary as an example, and if you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday schedule, and if, like in your elementary schools, you have art one time a week, and you have music one time a week, if Friday is a snow day and that child has art on Friday, he misses it that week. And then if the next week he or she happens to be sick, they could miss their special 2, sometimes 3 weeks. And then if there was a special program during the day. So if you look at some type of schedule that might be more of like an A-B schedule, then if A goes away for whatever reason, a closing, then when you come back, it's A day. And so then that way you maintain a lot more consistency. What really becomes helpful, and we'll see it in districts, and it's one of the things that we'll certainly look at and comment on, where we've been in districts where there might be 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 elementary schools, we've been kind of surprised to find that, one elementary school is a 6-day cycle, one's a 5-day cycle, one's an AB, and they have all kinds of opportunities where they could share staff, but they don't, and they can't simply because the schedule's so different. And then all they've had to do is to go to, let's say, an AB, and then all of a sudden it opens up all kinds of sharing, all kinds of enrichment, all kinds of support. They can better utilize, say, the school psychologists, the speech teachers, whatever it might be. So that's a key one. And the other thing about this type of question that you asked that's really a great one, this gets into what Paul and I talk about a lot when we do these kind of studies is, the question that we get from boards and from the communities, are there ways to do things differently, better, whatever, and get more bang for our buck, for the amount of money that we presently have? So we're looking at something here that doesn't necessarily cost you money, but by reorganizing it, may provide you with that substantial more bang for the buck, which means better opportunities for kids, better utilization of your staff, better utilization of your buildings, better utilization of support, all of those things that really can be helpful and provide great things for you. So that's real important.
So that's both the, when you talk about that, that's both the configuration, like an A/B type of a thing. What about the schedules within there?
No,
Do you know what I mean? Like efficiencies within that.
What we're learning is, the answer is, in fact, yes.
In that, okay.
For example, one of the key, we're getting data about what your teacher day is and what
Yeah.
your student day is.
Yeah.
We're looking at what the obligations of the teacher contract is. And it is what it is. Hey,
Right.
thank God there are contracts. It tells people what,
Right.
in essence, how they help each other. But we're looking at that, absolutely. So the answer is yes to that. I want to go back to Carla. Thought of two things. No, seriously. We've been told how we do the pupil capacity study. It literally lists every instructional and instructional support space. And we're told by community that, gee, now I know what's going on in the school. So I know that sounds, for those of you like principals who are like, yeah, we do all these curriculum guides, we do all this stuff, doesn't anybody read them? And here's some of the public saying, this simple, and it is, very simple listing document that inventories all the spaces, and a public person, a public community member says, now I know what's going on in there. That will help exactly what you were saying. However, I think there's another piece, we're gonna add another list, because this is important. I'm gonna ask, well, I'll type this out and send it. Let's, for the middle school and high schools, much like we did the class section sizes at the elementaries per grade level, let's get and I'll write this up, I'll send you a tool. You got other things to do, so we'll send you the tool. Let's get the each section size of each English class, both at the middle and high school. And the reason I pick English is because everybody has to take English, okay? Not everybody's taking trig or whatever it is, math 10, but everybody has to take English, so it'll be a good bellwether. It ties to what you were, I had to go back, because it's a bellwether of how staff is deployed as well as space is deployed by looking at how close to the 25 are the class sections, how close are they? And if they're not, what are the reasons they're not? And there very well could be. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we're going to add that like we did, I'm sorry, we added some more, but this is important, okay, like the spring kindergarten registration. That'll be interesting data to see. Is there a pattern there? Same thing with this one, okay? That'll help. Sorry, I thought of that on the way back. Okay, great. You got that one?
Yep.
Okay,
Pass?
if you want to.
Back to the census. You're taking a census of our district?
No,
Okay, you're going with data that you got from our district?
live births of the people.
Just that? You're
That's
not
right.
using anything else as
No.
far as age or anything? 'Cause I just-
What age of, help me?
Age of the district, of the average age of the district.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have all
That's
that
the
information,
demographics.
sure.
Well, yeah,
The
I mean, 'cause
demographics,
what
sure.
I'm looking at is,
Yeah.
trends, basically. I mean, we reached a peak of students here a few years back of like 2,600. And now it's dropping off. But I look at that as a trend. Your population is starting to age a little bit. They're moving to Florida to get away from Greg's bills. And young people are moving in, when they start moving out. And what comes with young people?
Well, we can't.
Children.
One would hope that. That's
Yeah.
why part of this study, when we do the enrollment projection, Mathis, I think you've given me already, I will interview one or two realtors to
Okay.
get their perspective. They make their living at this. They
Right.
know what the
They
market's
know what
like.
the trend
But I
is.
also know, they'll also give us access, usually they do, and I know I'm on tape. I've never had a realtor say no to this. These folks, like the codes people that I'll call and interview, or the planners, they just encourage schools to use them as a talent, to give you an idea of what's going on. They'll be most helpful. They're great people. But in addition, the realtors, I'll ask them to tap into the multiple listing service, which gives some real current data about what's happening within your school district. It's a proprietary software, but because it's for the school, realtors have been very helpful in providing that information. No, really.
Right, no,
Like-
no, it's.
Like we can go back and get old data. like a whole year ago or 2 years ago.
Right.
Off a state database. But what's been the latest date of how many days on the market has a residence been on? That's a good bellwether of turnover, okay? They'll give us their insights about who their clients have been. For example, one would, what you just described as, well, people retire empty nesters, they move away to Florida. Actually, in upstate New York, that is not the trend. It is not, for the following reasons. One, I like where I live. Two, my family's here, my doctors are here, I like shopping, I feel, it's a new one. I mean, not today new, but in the past few years, I feel safe here.
And
Okay.
Wegmans is here.
Oh, see, we have Wegmans in Syracuse, and that's my line. And there's Weggies here. You didn't let me finish, okay? There's Weggies. And another element that's occurred, this I learned from realtors, don't get me wrong, there are still folks that say, no, I'm going to Florida come heck or high water, I don't care about the
Well, it's not just-
hurricanes and all that. But another, believe it or not, another factor which has inhibited folks doing that, all right, is the mandatory flood insurance that if you buy a house down there, you have to pay. And often the flood insurance are, how can I say this? You said it, so I can follow up. That looks at the bills that Greg sends as, oh my God, Greg was cheaper.
No, he didn't.
Seriously.
Thank you.
My
Finally on record,
in-laws
Dennis, I'm cheaper.
spend, my in-laws spend over $4,000 a year on flood insurance.
Just flood
Well,
insurance.
Or homeowners insurance.
You know, it's,
Yep.
but it's not
And
just.
I'm sure they may, but I'm gonna guess they don't live in a $3 million home.
No, not at
Okay.
all.
And it's
I
just
lucked
not
out on
moving
that
to,
one.
No, not at all.
it's not just moving to Florida, but they're downsizing.
Well, yes.
You know,
See,
I mean,
that's
the people
where.
are downsizing, or the elderly will downsize, open that house up. And the only reason I go with this is I grew up in Webster, and we went through a big trend to where the population got big, and then all of a sudden it shrunk, and they were closing schools and selling schools, and then bam, all of a sudden the population exploded again. And it was young people moving in again. And I just don't want to see this, you know,
Well,
I
but
mean,
that-
you do have that roller coaster ride a little
But that's related to, for example, that's related to the housing inventory available, particularly in Webster. Again, and not to go on and on here, we can have a great
Right.
cup of coffee, but in that circumstance, again, it's, what you're saying, absolutely correct, but the housing inventory in Webster is such that you can still get, it's not a $3 million home, but you can get 3 bedrooms, a bath, maybe a bath and a half, for about $105,000. Okay, you can, all right? Their housing inventory is such, given what's happened in the housing market and the new rules, which probably value judgment, probably we should have had the new rules. Remember 2008 and the recession? You know what caused all that, the housing industry.
Yeah.
So it depends, that's why we interview realtors. What is the housing inventory? What's the affordability of the housing inventory in Wayne Central? And is it at the level that folks who may be looking for family households is not only the price points, but have the accoutrements that those looking for family households are looking for? Real example, Horsehead Central School, just down the road from Elmira. Okay? Great communities, really, they both are. The housing in Elmira is slower than the housing in Horseheads with new family type households, not because of lack of quality or whatever, but it's a type of characteristic of housing inventory. I grew up in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, no family room, no dining room, 50s house. You know how old I am. Folks who are beginning family households, that is not the characteristics of the households they want to buy. So therefore, the Elmira household market is so much slower. Not because they're bad, it's actually pretty nice. It doesn't have
The amenities.
it doesn't have what people want to buy. Yes, yes. Carla, listen to Carla.
Open concept.
Yes, listen. Oh, you watch HGTV too. Listen to Carla. She's got it.
Oh, I
You
realize
see how,
that.
that's why I interview realtors. Is it in stone? But you're local folks that who you're gonna give me, they're gonna know, and we're gonna report that in the study. Is it like in stone and absolute? No, but again, we look at every data source we can to give a perspective on the kinds of things that you'll be looking at. Does that help?
Oh, yeah, no,
Okay.
that's,
Okay. So, anyway, well, there are some issues happening. You know, well, we won't go into that. But, are you okay?
yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Pamela?
I'm thinking of special education.
Yeah.
I know in the past Wayne was a consortium school where we, had other schools paying tuition to have their, mostly, I'm assuming, self-contained classrooms in our district. And I know with the big push of, pulling your kids back to their home districts, it has lessened the number of kids per classrooms, has kind of made you have to consolidate programs. I'm wondering if this study might show a benefit to, I don't know, how you would explore, getting other schools to be, send their kids here for their special ed programming. Because it really does, if our classroom, in any school district, if your classroom is too small, the children don't benefit from having a wider variety of children and other kids to, bounce off of and learn from.
I can say this to you, if it looks like you have excess pupil capacity, the study will give some ideas of how you might want to utilize that excess capacity. And one of them would be exactly what you just said. A concerted effort by the district to work with other districts, the BOCES, which I know you had a close relationship with. And there are reasons, they build space, you build space for them, then you needed it and all. That's normal. It's a normal ebb and flow of a district, like you went to full day kindergarten. Well, you had this space that you have is meant for your kids first. And you were a great partner with BOCES as they help collaborative supply services. But it comes down to Wayne children come first. And you needed, a real story, right? You needed that for full day K. And you did what you should have done. Okay? So if it looks like you have excess space, we will make suggestions of how you might look to utilize that space for children, not only to not just to fill it, but that could benefit your children also by having, like you just said, if you have a class where it's meant to be a 12-1-1 and you only have 7 in it, you in essence, within the rules, have room for 5 more. Could other schools partake? There's a cost savings benefit of sharing, and you're utilizing your space. Just exactly what you said. I couldn't say it better than you did.
We'll respond to that in the study via number 9. That will also come under that number 9 question.
Okay? Okay. Joe's passing.
I think the only other thing that I'd be interested in is opportunities for usage with, collaborating with BOCES, shared services that we might want to investigate that might be more cost effective for the district. I also have a question around how, our usage of, so we talked about teaching staff, paraprofessional staff, or instructional staff in general, I think, as well. So anything we can do around being better efficient with how we're deploying paraprofessionals, teacher aides, assistants, anything around that, if there are things.
Right, and we are observing, we've observed some things
Can I add to that just a little bit? What about shared services between schools in our district?
Yes, I mean, definitely, so shared services between schools or staffing, shared staffing?
Right, yeah, anything, whether it be cafeteria or, gym or,
So we have so for example, foreign language, we have one that goes to the middle school, one between the high school. There's different opportunities there. Are there other opportunities we might need to look at? I'm thinking about the schedule we talked about. Sometimes the schedule creates a barrier, right? And there are issues, there are instances where we see the schedules. One school has an A, B schedule, another one has an A through D schedule, and it creates a real problem going back.
But you bring up a good one. Are there other areas, and we can counsel with Mathis, for example. And I know I'm in. So, are you in the black in your cafeteria program?
No.
Okay, that was a bad example to point out.
Naming
We all
a
know
school
the
district that is in the black right
There
now.
there are very few.
More than you think.
There's lots
I have to be respectful. More than you think, Ron.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than you think. However, However, that's an opportunity, because typically one way to get there, seriously, in context of this discussion, is shared cafeteria management. In other words, share a cafeteria manager with either another large school or a small school. Somebody, and again, I'm not making any value judgment, so I don't know who your cafeteria manager is, I'm making no value, not my job. However, that's a potential, sharing a highly successful cafeteria manager who knows in these times of how to do it. You share it, okay, with another district, which becomes a BOCES consortium service, which there is BOCES aid appropriately, and this is not a flim-flam. BOCES aid is meant to support schools who share to benefit their kids, so it's not just a source of revenue. Really, it's not. However, what that does do, it helps mitigate your expense to the cafeteria program by that much immediately. So you start getting closer to the black. And by teaming with another school district with common menus, with enough flexibility. Maybe you have Wayne School District fritters, fine. You want that on Thursdays, go ahead. But you know what I'm getting at, not to be facetious. But by combining bulk buying together, maybe you have bigger freezers than the neighboring district, that can tremendously add to reducing the red ink. Okay? It really can. So, something to look at. Same thing with transportation directors. All those kinds of things. Well, anyway.
Let me just clarify, we are in the black overall, but not the last couple of years.
In other words, we're in the red.
So we are whittling down our fund balance.
I'm sorry, Phil, what did you say, Phil? I'm not going there. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Greg. I'm not going there.
Because
we're in the purple. I like that. Did you like that? That was good. That was cute.
We're not in the green, though.
Okay. Well, there's there's an example that can be terribly successful. Terribly successful. How could it be? Very successful. Okay.
Well, part of it's looking too is how the costs are apportioned within the
Right.
budget too. I mean, that's another thing is, as Greg knows, looking at how you're setting up the cafeteria and the way some of these costs are set up. And then particularly if you get into a situation where you might be sharing, then you really can start to examine how there's what they call direct cost and indirect cost, and then there's different ways of maximizing that. Setting up, I don't know if your elementary schools have it, but what Paul was getting at, we know lots of places with the elementary schools that even though they may have different staff that are doing the cafeteria, but their schedule, and again, I don't know if it's yours yet or not, but their schedule is the same in all 7 elementary schools. The cafeteria schedule, what they have on Monday in elementary school A is the same thing in elementary school F. I mean, it's just always right down the line. So
Plus,
there's different ways that.
Not suggesting a whole different study that you hire somebody, but if you probably within your BOCES, there are talented folks who may not wear one of these. In fact, you don't want somebody who wears one of these, who really does the work. For example, they'll do things like number of meals served per labor hour is one of the primary guideposts in judging the success or lack of success of a school meal program. Be interesting to see what yours is. Okay, things like that.
The way free and reduced is being
Yeah,
used.
the way all of that. It's all very.
That's a big one.
It's somebody who really does the work.
Do you
I'll
look
just
at
say
the
it that way.
pricing as well?
Pardon?
Do you look at pricing
Everything.
as well?
Sure.
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're pretty inexpensive here.
We can talk later. We did a study. We brought somebody in to help us. It was a different issue. It was a newly merged district, and if they didn't change their ways, they would be in the hole within 24 months.
Big time.
Big time. I won't go into detail, but one of the elements in discovery was their school lunch program was like deeply in the red. So we suggested to the board that that's something they could deal with like right away, and we helped them get there. But anyway, okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
You're sure, Kate.
It kind of stems off of Pam's question and a couple of the enrollment. Given the increase in our special ed students that have come into the district, I apologize for opening this box up, but if.
You know that to be accurate.
Yes.
We had
Yes.
21
Oh, yes.
21 students show up this year.
Okay.
That we didn't have in the past.
All right, that's why I just,
Yes.
it's,
Yep.
you know, I just got.
Big number, yeah.
Would there be, if we find that there's a lot of extra space in one of our buildings, or if we reconfigured, would it be beneficial to us to have something like a Roosevelt type preschool program that they meet like for kids who have in the preschool age program, if they have needs, significant needs, having one of those on our campuses in the building versus outsourcing it to there?
You're talking about county preschool handicap? Where are they now, where are they now in the region? Those
Newer?
classes?
Is it newer?
There's different programs. We used to have one of the programs here at our Ontario Primary. Stepping Stones used to be here, but then
But then what?
we needed the space.
Well, it ties
For
into
our-
what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
remember? Other agencies, because that's county money, that's county, even though there is
Yep.
some formula stuff, I know that, but, you know, that's
Yeah, we used to do that.
a similar outside agency that has their responsibility, and that ties into what we were talking about earlier. What other kinds of similar, in support of community and kids, agencies could utilize space if you had space available?
And my question is, would it be more cost effective if we had a program like that back on our district, sending our school district students versus transporting them there or doing other things, it's in-house? Is that something you can?
Well, I don't want to misspeak. The
So-
funding for preschool handicap now, how much do you pay and how much does the county pay? I'm putting you on the spot,
But
Greg.
would it be,
I want to put
but would it
Greg
be
on the
better for
spot.
our students if
The
we're
county pays for it.
looking at
Hold on,
pre-K?
well, wait, but you're assuming that it costs the district. What is the formula now for preschool handicap? I mean, I won't put you on the spot. If you don't know, don't say it.
Not quite sure.
Okay, is there,
Yeah.
because, is it,
Michelle knows.
Michelle, is it all paid by the county?
It's all paid by the county.
Well, then there's your
Transportation and the whole
answer.
program
Okay.
is paid by-
No, not to waste the county money,
Right,
but
but
it's
we're
not,
looking at.
it's not costing you.
But we're looking at pre-K right now. That's one of the programs that we're talking about, pre-K
Well,
through
but there's a
12.
difference, pre-K handicap, preschool handicap versus pre-K. There's a
But some of
distinct
these
difference.
kids come to OP the following year, don't they?
So, let
Some
me
of them
just,
good for kids, yes.
so Carrie, just to kind of, so as a special ed person, who
Yeah.
spent a lot of time in that realm and the cost. So sometimes people will bring programs to their district and say it's cheaper. The transportation costs, you might save on, right, because they're right there in your school. However, the program costs, so you still have to pay a tuition cost for that child in that program. If the tuition are excessively high, you might not really, the only thing you're gonna save is still, so, the transportation, but the cost of the program could be excessively expensive, hugely expensive. So it might not, or it might, it depends. So, but it's a good, so I think the question is going back to future considerations. Like if there are other opportunities that we could utilize or investigate for space that's empty, that would be beneficial to our students and connect them and try to keep them on campus, that's great too.
With your permission, because you teamed with Mathis, can we add that as another one? Other,
So, you know, is there space that could be rented to other agencies, like a BOCES?
Or
Or a community
county.
group, or a library, or something else, or, you know, something, are there any other opportunities that would bring income? And help
Is
us
that okay?
utilize that space better?
Oh, wonderful.
we're gonna listen, okay? Good,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that could be
Good,
beneficial to
good.
kids too.
That could be
Keep them on
difficult.
campus, yeah.
good. Where'd we end up?
Here.
Yes, sir.
Will your data tables, because we have a K2 building, we have a K5 building, we have a 3-5 building, will your data tables compare instructional time across those grade levels?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
so that we can make sure that each kid is.
Oh,
getting-
yes.
Okay,
That's one of the basic things that,
and also staffing,
yes, sir.
and also how about support staff? Instructional staff and support staff, or just instructional staff?
We do look at instructional staff. If you're talking about instructional support staff, we're talking just aides and assistants.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Just aides.
How you man your secretaries and all that's your, it's just like your central office. You have to make that decision. Teacher aides, teacher assistants.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody has direct contact with kids.
yeah. And not the one-to-one aides. That changes yearly.
Yeah.
Everybody know what I mean by 1 to 1/8. These are decisions made by parents along with the school, with the blessing of the board, that, for the IEPs, and that varies year to year. It could, number of 1 and 1/8, but that's directly related to a program decision about individual youngsters. We're talking beyond, other aides, okay, that serve the general population, okay? Really, because that special ed stuff it's a month to month, week to week. I hate to say this, hour to hour kind of thing almost. It really is. God forbid somebody tomorrow could be severely medically frail, and guess what will be on your desk? A polite request of, we need help here on this medically frail child. That happens constantly. That's the way it is. And you know what? We've worked in states where they don't have those kind of laws, and I know it sounds expensive, but boy, we just finished a major study in another state that don't have the kind of supports for children with special needs and the parents of, and what a difference. It's just eye-opening. It really, I know there's a cost, but wow. We need to admire ourselves as a culture for what we're doing for children who happen to have special needs. And that's an opinion. It's an opinion, but I'm very willing to express that. So anyway, sorry, but wow. When you don't have, that's right, when you don't see what you're used to seeing, it's so startling. It really is. Okay.
Next one is on our technology.
Yes.
Supporting our programs. Is it up to date enough? Do we have enough?
Well, your tech plan, you already have something in place. That tech plan is supposed to be updated, and I believe you do that. If you haven't, it's probably on Mathis's agenda to do. That's where you go for that answer. Because that's more than these guest outsiders looking at all of this and looking and say, yeah, those what you call it, screens are being used. It's really deeper than that. That's why you already have in place that tech plan process to answer very specific questions about what you're asking. What we do find, we did ask your principals today. I'll tell you a question we did ask. We saw in every classroom smartboards, and we asked the question, are they used? We saw them being used, but we asked your principals, and they said, oh yes, there was an extensive plan that training came first before the equipment showed up in the classrooms. These are your principals answering this, because I can only believe what they tell me, which is the right way to do it. You get trained first to use it, then the equipment shows up, and then you're able to apply what you've learned. That was the pattern in this district when that technology came about, as I'm told. So if that's your pattern with all other kinds of technology since then, which you should ask about, that would probably give you a good indication that the answer to your question is probably you're doing pretty good. But that's where your tech plan comes in, okay? Really. Sorry.
And there are resources also so some of these items, again, I'm taking the whole list now. Some of these items, there are other resources that would be to come and look at that. There is a BOCES service that comes in and looks at, and it's an external set of eyes, right? We already pay for the service. They come in to see how you're using things. Are things being used the right way? Where are people at with that? And that can give us that feedback. So there are some of the sources that you're asking about, there are other ways we can get them for you. We'll do that for you.
Matt, anything?
You had mentioned checking with, consulting with local realtors. Does that include also looking at the town for building starts?
We'll call each town. We'll either call, some towns have planning person, some have the head codes person. We will be personally calling those people, yes.
Because we've seen, I've been told we've got a significant increase this year compared to the last 4 years. So that'd be interesting.
I'm not sure what that means, and we'll find it out.
Yeah, okay.
But typically, typically for households, new household units, typically you got to approach 100 new ones to make any dent in a public school enrollment. And you'll have data to show that. Okay, it takes that many to make some kind of impact on a public school district. The onesies and twosies and threesies or tensies doesn't make a significant impact on filling up schools. But, absolutely, the answer is yes, they'll be interviewed. Jeremy, anything? Good. Greg, you set? You set, Phil?
I am.
You set, Carla?
I just wonder, do you look at, contracts? Do you look at, like utilization of, teacher free time, and are they being used for administrative duties, study halls, all that kind of stuff?
What we do is we look at your teacher contract for deployment of your staff. We work with your principals. We ask them how they deploy their staff. Do they deploy it by what the contract expects? And we look at, for example, prep time, consistency, equity. We do that.
Teacher day.
Teacher day, we do that, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Set.
good.
Set. Okay. Are you set?
I'm set.
You don't have to be.
I'm set.
You okay?
I'm good.
All right, you ready for this? Yeah, that's about right. You have 18 items. Okay.
I'll put it up.
I'm going to give you 50 points. Individually, it's all individually. As I said to you, all of these items will appear in the results of tonight. Every one of them. Okay? Nothing's lost. But now it would help us if we had a rank ordering of how important. Don't get me wrong, they're all important. But which ones might be more important than others for the study to really focus in on? See where we're going? I'm going to give you 50 points. You must spend 8 points on one item. You must spend 8 points on one item. You cannot spend more than 8 points on any item. Your limit is 8. But you must spend 8 on at least one. You could spend 0 on any number you want to. See what I mean? That doesn't mean you don't think it's important, but to you it's not as important as other items. Got it? So there are 18 items. Here's a little worksheet. I don't get this. This is yours. So you look at these. You might want to get up. It's a good time to maybe run to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee, and look at the 18 items quickly. And what you'll do, you're going to spend your 50 points. So you'll see listed here. It says 1 through 50. That's not the points. Sometimes we get 50 items from district, from large groups. But you have 18 items. So you're going to spend 50 points on items 1 through 18. Okay? You must spend 8 on one item.
So that leaves 42
That you spend however else you
on
want to
the
spend.
other 17.
However you want to do that.
Okay.
But you cannot give more than 8 to one item. You can't go 10 to one item.
You said you can do more than 1 8.
Yeah.
You can do more than 1 8 if you want, but no more. Okay? See how that goes?
Here,
Okay? Do this privately, doesn't take long.
Pam, or is everyone doing this?
Yeah, everybody's participating,
Oh.
yes.
All the, everybody?
Oh, yes, everybody at the table.
I don't think Carla wants to have a vote.
Thank you.
But Pam doesn't get a vote.
Okay? Everybody got it?
Sorry, Pam, for that.
All right. So you get up. Hey, you know what? Let the juices flow. Get up a little bit. Move a little bit. If you want. Sure.
Well, my thing is, 3 years.
I like the one that came up that I said, I want the schedule. See ya. Good to see you.
Yeah, I know.
What is it?
Get that there and have the other sure.
Yeah.
I already thought about that. I already had that.
Frank.
I've already had that thought.
Good, how are you?
I wrote that down.
Yes.
All done individually.
What do you teach?
Good.
Okay?
We use 8 points for these.
No good.
You spend the rest however you want. No one is. You don't take that at all.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I feel like you're.
They're only guidelines anyway.
I know.
I don't want to rattle the key.
Like the staff meetings, Carl keeps it.
Education is important. Well, somewhat.
I'm just gonna come back.
No, come on.
I'll take you down and build a chief. Go back.
That's because he hasn't lived here.
He hasn't seen you a lot.
One of those faces.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's right.
That's right, that's a good one. There you go. Good, that's good advice.
Okay? Then when you're done, let me know.
Clarify for me again, number 2, scenario options should reflect strategic plan initiatives.
Right, that your strategic plan.
Gotcha, okay.
Right, remember you just did all that
Yep,
work?
Yep.
So they gotta be in concert, or at least address,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
That was the wisdom. You finished? Okay, here's the next step. No, they're yours. I don't wanna look at them. Here, take this pen and step behind the curtain.
Okay.
And the Wizard of Oz will help you.
Just cut everyone.
Yeah, put your right, just put your result in like front.
Okay.
Put a plus sign. Anybody else finished?
Yeah.
You finished?
Yes, I'm finished.
Here, speak to this. Come over here.
Okay.
Put a plus sign.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Do I need to put zeros or just?
No, just. Yeah.
Get through it. No.
Yes, I agree. And it's only Monday and I'm agreeing.
Good job. Anybody else that's finished, come on over here. Come on over. See what you did?
Just
You
then
put a
take
plus sign
that
after, so you can keep.
and then fill in what you did.
Nice.
Just put it right after.
Oh, if I have the same?
Well, no, just put, I put a plus, so put your numbers on. It number 7.
Yeah.
So you put plus.
Oh, plus like this?
Yeah, and then put plus. So the
Okay,
next person.
so I,
No,
okay,
yeah,
I
that's
was
fine.
doing
No,
it.
that's fine.
Okay,
That's no
now I
problem.
got it.
That's no problem.
I gotcha.
Okay?
Good, man. So, you hanging in there? Sure.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, sorry. I
And then
messed
who's ever
that
next,
first
here's the
one up.
next pen. Do I have? And we trust you that you will add up, that it will not be more than 50.
That's 10, like right there.
50 points.
Leave your shoes back. 20.
No, wait. Look at it.
30, 40.
What am I doing?
That's what I'll do. Yes, just put a plus, see what I'm, so the next person.
I love looking it up for you.
Okay. Sure. Maybe that's better, because there was some of the.
I think that would be so good. I got my literacy
It's their workshop, your processing, you know, I mean, I don't mind, whatever I say.
Oh, I would love a little one. Yeah. James is, he's doing better. I haven't
That
told
would be
him
nice.
off. We'll see. At least he says he loves me.
Very good.
Oh, did you miss me?
I've learned by how
After they're
every
done,
year I add
what I'm gonna have
more
you do
cost.
Paul's gonna go and start with some of the stuff. We're gonna take these two charts, we'll take them out in the hall, we're gonna add them up, and then we'll put the numbers down on this other chart I have, and then we'll rank order them. Okay? So we'll wait till everybody's done, and you and I'll do that.
Yep.
Great.
I can add.
I can do that, baby. So they It's a good, just as I'm listening to it now, it's a good list. I mean, what you came up with.
You can use your
Hits on
own.
all the.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, it really does. It hits the issues that are there. One of them, and they'll all get examined. It's good stuff. It's really I've got a lot of good insights today, just one or two. You and the department. So it's good we had a good session.
You starting with OE tomorrow?
Yeah, I think we do OE, middle, high.
Give me all the information
Yes, we are nice.
But it really, I mean, it really helps to be in the buildings.
Are you guys talking?
Because we have a few proposals, and we're going through them. And like at Freewell, there was the, you know, yeah, and we were looking at the grades, and then we saw the 2-3, so we weren't exactly sure. It really makes sense. She was taking.
Changing everybody's answers.
0.5 with that, so it was, yeah, it was really a good way to do it. Okay.
Line up.
So I'll let you start. Bob's gonna help me. We'll take
Great.
these.
We'll get
take them out
everybody
in the
back
hall,
in.
and then we'll.
Once everybody's, everybody,
Just go.
yeah, we'll get everybody back in here and we'll start that.
Right.
Give it extra people.
I think we just got Matt. Oh, there's 2 groups? Yeah, there's one. Well, you're in the short list here, so.
We're the short one.
Here, I'll take that.
Okay, as soon as everybody, then we'll get everybody back in.
Yeah, once we've got those all set.
Okay. Why don't you get a refreshment and come on back in, we'll get you home in a good time soon.
That's good.
I'm not thinking that, I promise.
I am, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
So did you actually crash, or?
Tucker was driving, we went through the briar patch, so we were pulling briars out of us. And he said we need to go over there. And it was a pretty thick brush lot, where my property goes through a thick brush lot. And he hit a sapling that was a little bit bigger than we thought, and he rode it right up and it went over on the back.
Oh, luckily nobody got hurt.
I was holding it up with my legs and my arms so he could
He could
crawl
get
out
out.
underneath.
Oh, I've had that happen.
Have a good evening. Thanks for coming.
You'll see it.
Okay,
Did I just write my number?
almost, yes, just your, what you. Yeah, so we can add them up.
Seattle's best.
What's it?
You're making me crazy.
Carlos said.
That's good too.
Can we get back together?
Well, the best coffee is supposed to be that one that they feed the coffee, it's to an animal and it excretes it.
Oh, that-
It's true. And then they say that that's the best coffee in the world. Pick the beans out of the excrete. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think they're shitting me, but. That's a good day to be alive. Oops, missed.
Okay. Very briefly, we want to, very briefly, while Bob and Doug are compiling, again, Bob's there to make sure, we don't like to add anything, so Bob is your agent.
Price Waterhouse.
No, seriously, we don't like to touch any, really.
Yeah, but
Bob's
he
gonna
only
do it.
knows elementary.
Well, you know him and you love him, so us you just met. So.
Oh, he had magic math, he was a primary.
Magic math. All right, here's where we're at. Two things. We talked about the purpose of the study and all. We've done that already. The piece that I want to spend a little time with, they're doing that, won't take long, is you received our work papers for pupil capacity that we're using as we visit your schools. It's not accurate. It's accurate as of before our visit, but in meeting with the principals, there are some changes. Why, you say, well then why are you sharing it? One, transparency, bless you. Two, we want you to begin to get an idea of how much pupil capacity there is unused compared to your current enrollment. But it's not in stone. We will, remember we said we're gonna give you that study and that, there it is, we'll stand behind it. So take a look at it. For example, at Ontario Primary, benchmark to October, you have 335 children. Based on, you see how we give the inventory of all the spaces used and all of that? No judge, we just report what the principal gives us. Right now, you're about almost 17% under capacity in that building. No value judge, this is just data, okay? Take a look at at Ontario Elementary, you are over 34% under capacity right now, okay? At Free Will, you are almost 29% under capacity right now.
That would have been the school I would have thought would have been more.
Okay? Now we go to the secondary. At the middle school, you're a little over 26% under capacity. At the high school, based on the preliminary information that by the way, this came from your principals. They are the CEOs of your buildings. That's the only person that can tell us how the building's being used. You hire them to do what you and Mathis expect the program to be delivered. So this data has to come from your principals, all right? So at the high school, you are 35% under capacity, given your enrollment as of October 2015. Yes, ma'am.
You got this from our principals,
Yeah.
but how did you get that? They gave you how many rooms or?
How they're using each of the spaces, okay? There are instructional rooms and there are instructional support rooms. But in the document you're going to get will be defining what instructional support and whatever instruction means. Also, what is benchmarked, this is benchmarked to your class size goals.
Right.
Given your class size goals, how the spaces are being deployed, this is how much capacity you are using, or however you want to look at it, or not using.
Right, but who gave you like all the square footage and all?
Oh, the district.
We did that.
That's
We
you.
had all of our maintenance.
That's
staff
you.
in, we looked at all of our blue.
Oh, that's
prints
you.
and blue charts, and we
Okay.
went down.
You see how valuable this can become a tool?
Right.
Yeah.
And as
Not
far
just
as-
for this, not for what we do, but for your own work. Like, if a principal said, well, we're gonna take, for example, if special ed, we're gonna take room in this room at the high school and make this a 15-1-1. Now you got a place to go and say, oh, but then what are you gonna do with that? You see what I mean?
Okay.
Now you got a tool.
It shows you where you can absorb
You
some
got
other
it.
students
Yes, sir.
in other
Yes, sir.
areas.
See?
And just to add, Paul, so in terms of the space, I want to tell you, we didn't just go by what was on the charts, right? We had people in, some of you had folks who came and told you that we had people measuring spaces and checking it out. So our custodians for each of the buildings, we're doing that. We also wanted to make sure our numbers were accurate, because accuracy is really great. Still with the accuracy, we still were off by 1 or 2 kiddos in certain places, but we also cross-checked with our school what's the system we use?
Safety system.
Howard Schools, to make sure that those numbers were correct as well.
So, you might say, well, like today, we learned there's a room listed that a class section is in, but really it's vacant. That's not here because we learned that today. So you see how important it is? We need to visit with a colleague principals and we walk the buildings, we talk about program, we see the spaces, we see kids using and teachers using the spaces in action, and we have lots of questions. So we are refining this for accuracy about deployment, and that'll be done tomorrow. And then you'll see the pupil capacity study, which is here's what it is. But we didn't do it in a vacuum. It's all based on the people that count, and in this case, it's the people you've hired to deliver the program along with your teachers in each of the buildings. Okay? Just a so you can see. So you might say, what's the conclusion of this? Currently, you have a gap between the amount of pupil capacity you have and the number of pupils you have. Also, the gaps will probably get larger because, remember I mentioned to you earlier, remember that example I gave you? Is anybody doing something wrong because PT is in an 850 square foot room versus a 450, which is more typical for that service? Not just in schools in New York State. Absolutely not. Principal's doing what she ought to be doing, using every nook and cranny. However, that 850 really can have pupil capacity, and in the study we'll note that by highlighting it and say these rooms, if there was enrollment, could be deployed without violating class size goals and without shoehorning kids, could be utilized to provide classroom instruction. So therefore, if anything, there's more pupil capacity than this shows right now because of that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
If we could just, so it looks like some of the board members need time to process out
Right.
now. So I saw Phil, you had a question. This is a good time to.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
My question was, at first, I did this in-depth study in Iraq, and I went over with a investigative team, and we went over and we talked to the Department of Defense and all the commands of where's all the money and where are all the guns? And it was well received. They wanted to answer our questions. And then we went to the Minister of Interior, the Iraqis, and we asked them. Now, we had hard facts. We had just data. We knew exactly what was sent over there. So now it's a question of where did it go? And the more we asked questions, and the more we got some data that looked like you're 35% under the capacity, we started to realize that people no longer wanted to talk to us. They no longer wanted to be honest with us. They no longer wanted to, because we were getting results that didn't look good, in case you are unfamiliar with the news a decade ago. So my question to you is, this is all exciting and fun and it's great, but what you've shown us in the last 5 minutes would make me very defensive. So how do you think, as this continues to go, the staff's going to respond to your questions?
Which staff?
All of the staff.
Your principals and your administrators will respond well, and they have already, because it's totally transparent. Absolutely.
Just because it's transparent doesn't mean that it's good news.
Oh, God, no. Remember I said to you about the mirror? Remember what I said to you about the mirror? We said that to them.
Right.
You may not like what the mirror says, but also, we don't just interview people, and I don't know what you did in Iraq, but we literally are in each of these rooms in our visits. So we see firsthand, or don't see firsthand, what's listed. So that verifies it, and that's not because we're doubting what anybody says, but we are firsthand verifying the pedagogy that's going on in these spaces. And for example, today, we found a room that was, even though your folks did a great job, there was one room that was listed as 285 square feet, just intuition. It wasn't. I counted tiles. It's closer to 450. Big deal. But it is a big deal because you can use a 450 square foot room for a support instructional service differently than you can a 285. See how this is important?
Yeah.
It sounds like a little detail, but it's not, because it's got to be accurate. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. I just wondered how as this goes, it sounds like you've done this a lot, right?
Yeah.
So it's not something new to you. It just seems like these questions go from being very open and cool and fun, it's a great study, to all of a sudden becoming intrusive.
Well,
But you've
that's
been doing
not
it a
my
long
kind of
time,
word.
so-
We're doing our work. For example, well, there'll be more. I don't call them intrusive. We're guest outsiders,
reveal
knowing what to
themselves.
ask.
Is there an optimal number that should be down here from your experience?
Yeah, typically schools should strive for having at least 10% unused pupil capacity for flexibility. We're working with children. We're working with people. We're not in Lakewood building Cummins engines, okay?
All right,
10% unused capacity is a reasonable goal to have for flexibility. And that's not fluffy word. For example, and you know yourself, there's many times either a grant comes through, what do you need to get the grant besides wanting to do it? You need some space. Number two, all ideas from teachers don't necessarily cost money. But in my 45 years of experience in schools, they all require some space. Okay? They really do. I was really serious. Could be a nook or cranny, or it could be a small stage area. You need something to do ideas and not necessarily money. Okay? That's where the 10% comes from. And also, as you'll see in the pupil capacity study, we will document that typically when you go to state ed, again, don't forget, this is not a brick and mortar, but what we give you on this last column is how SED looks at the space for building aid. When you go to SED, and Mathis will tell you this, they will in essence encourage about a 10%, even though your enrollment numbers may be X, they will often allow 10% more for that very reason. Flexibility and making sure, because you don't go to the well every year to build something. So you got to make sure there's not too much, but there's not too little. So that's where the 10% comes in. Does that make sense?
And let me just to talk a little bit, Phil, about the staff. So for the most part, I have to tell you, our staff understands the reality of the study. These things, most of them are not secrets. I think the staff really knows. They know, right? They've been very forthcoming. They've been very interested in the study.
Okay.
And it has been, it's a thing that's kind of on people's minds. When I did the entry plan and all of those interviews, so people know what most people know what the realities are.
Mhm.
They want to know what are we going to do about it,
Okay.
right? How are we going to resolve it?
I'm good with that answer.
And-
I just
and
wanted to.
let me
but I was-
just share with you that, so our administrators, he's right. Sometimes there's like a little nervousness because we're looking at things, but I have to say to you, I met with them Thursday as a whole team. We met this morning, this afternoon, and the administrators, they also understand this, and the question is, where do we go next? So we are constantly taking the temperature of the buildings. I'm in them every other day, trying to see how people are doing. And I think people are kind of, they know it's there, and what they're looking for is, what are the next steps? What's the plan in place if something goes wrong? Like, we know it's there, right? It's like the Gannett issue. We've always known that Gannett was there, we know it's an issue, but do we have a backup plan? And so I think knowing that we're moving to it, some people, and by the way, some people are a little nervous, right?
Well, some board members
Yeah.
are, right? It's natural.
Very natural.
I'm good with
Sure.
that answer.
So we're keeping them
No,
moving.
nobody did anything wrong,
No.
except, I don't want to be facetious. Maybe some of you didn't have enough babies. How come we don't have more kids? No, anyway, I'm sorry. It's been a long game. But no, seriously, folks. No, but seriously.
That hits home, right?
Well,
Okay.
hey, it is what it
I
is.
I just wanted to know how it's been received.
And keep in mind, we're doing a lot with keeping people in the loop. So all of the things that we're doing, our community group that we had a couple of weeks ago, some of you attended, I see Tim's hand, we're keeping everybody in the loop. I see Tim's hands up, and I know Dennis has hand up.
So,
I'd like, just, everybody I talk to, I want this data, this is just data, and I think people, if we put out the importance of the study, and I get to that, and hopefully everybody else get done doing it. It's out in the open, this is what we want, like you said, look in the mirror, and I think people will continue. Because we just want to have it, with guidance. We didn't have anything before.
and no games are, something as simple as all of your principals have the data from all the buildings. And that sounds like a little thing, but you know what? That's a message of respect in that, hey, here's the data. It's everybody's
But
bill.
really, shouldn't school districts be doing this anyway to
Well,
be
They do.
responsible? And
They do. Not all, but many do. Let's put it this way. I've helped over 200 districts. The 200 I worked with have, and there are some in the neighborhood. Well, doesn't matter. I'm working with a neighboring district for some of these same reasons, you know, anyway.
Dennis had his hand up and Sherry.
Just a observation. Ontario Elementary, 367 students.
Yep.
Wayne Central High School, 738 students, with a 35% underpopulation, which comes out to be 398 students. So what that tells me is this building could absolutely absorb Ontario Elementary.
On paper, but not necessarily programmatically.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Talking
on
about a
paper-
different age child, you're talking about
Exactly.
value, you see.
Yeah, and not that you would put a high school with an elementary school, but I'm just saying, there's ways that.
That's why you hired us to
That's
identify
what-
those for you.
that's what you guys
How's
are
that?
doing.
Remember I told you?
Yeah, that's what you guys are doing for us.
It's not brain surgery, it takes
Right.
experience,
Mhm.
but it's, like Grandma says, when in doubt, use common sense,
Mhm.
all right? But it can't just willy-nilly, well, we're gonna stick this widget here because there's room. No. We're talking about children. We're talking
Right,
about
no.
different development stages. All of that, and that's not fluff for like, what the hell are you talking about? That's not fluff. Those are real issues, okay? Or, I mean, really important issues. So, and you'll see that in the study. All right? I mean, anyway. Okay,
Just a
yes.
quick question. I'm looking at like estimated total building aid units, and I'm thinking of, and.
That's a money issue. Just totally
Okay,
ignore that
but
for
we say
program.
the functional class size goal is like 401 for Ontario primary. and
That's what
it's-
it is.
And currently it's 335, and I just think of as a parent, you know, the class size and where it is, to put an extra, 60 kids almost in there? Like, I don't know where you'd put them.
Oh, yeah, there's actually more space. There's more space to put more children. Given your guidelines for values and what your program is.
But
Yes.
like, but you know what I mean? Like, as a parent who has a child in that building and have been in that building, it's shocking to say,
Really?
when you,
Okay.
oh yeah, because
Okay.
if you like do assemblies or do different things like that, it's filled to capacity before you bring guests in. Like, just from the current, from somebody, you're doing it from your end, but just looking at it
I'm
as.
doing it from a program end.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I'm just looking at it from a parent end as well. When you're in that building and seeing things, it's just shocking to see that, oh yeah, it can fit that many more kids.
But you have to remember, it did in a lot less space.
Sure.
Before.
And that's fine. I'm just saying
See the
the
balance?
numbers.
See,
I'm
isn't
just
it-
saying the numbers.
This is the kind of
surprising.
engaged, you're modeling what we pray for, but you both have something, real data to speak from. See, that's the key.
And
Don't
there-
necessarily agree or disagree, but you got real data to talk from.
Sure.
And they are using our programmatic guidelines.
Oh, yes.
As well as the state's recognition of space.
It's just
Yes.
surprising to see that number, and it's like, wow, really? You can put that many more kids
Yeah,
in that
really.
small building? Whoa.
Yeah, and more.
Well, a lot of districts do 2 assemblies, you know, different grade levels, or not everybody goes, different things like that, so that they get use of the space too.
So, again, what you have is, I want you to see our work papers. It's real, but in the pupil capacity study, we actually give people the information. We don't want people to take our word for it. You will see that it's a layman explanation of how building aid works, all that kind of very easy, but it helps educate folks. We happen to believe the more informed public you have, the better it is, okay? So, all right, just so you see where we are. Now, the next piece, this is preliminary enrollment calculations, and we give you the pictures. Yeah, let's get those out to folks. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on this. All right. This is what we did. I do this on purpose. It's the enrollment. No words, just pictures. You know why? I want you to take it home. And if Syracuse loses, which I hope they don't, it'll give you something to do instead of watching any more basketball. You know what I'm getting at? All right. You never know. But if they win, you don't have to read this right away, because they'll be, all right? Anyway, so here's a picture of the patterns. Take a look at Wayne Central School. Since 2010, you were at 2,425 pupils. You are now at 2,230. You have lost almost 200 students in 6 years. Just what it is, okay? You'll notice, take a look, we break it down, K6, 7, 12. You'll notice the trend line for those K6, 7, 12 are both headed downward. Okay? The best would have been if both trend lines were going up, or the secondary was going down, but the elementary was going up. You see why that would be good? It's not the case. They're both going down. This is real data. It's not what if data. Yeah, sure.
We've got that.
Sure. It's not for publication, but absolutely. Why not? This one they really can look at. This is pretty accurate. Absolutely. Go ahead. Why not? It's not going to change. It's not going to change. You got to understand. Well, wait. Okay. Notice on page 3, we break it by K5, 6, 8, 9, 12. Take a look. All three are, we break it down finer, all three are heading downward, 6, 8 less than 9, 12 and K5. That's all it is, just holding up a mirror. All right? So all segments of your K-12 program, the pattern of enrollment since over the past 6 years is down. Okay? If you would go to...
If you don't see the key, it's right under year. So you can figure out which, you know, I was looking to the right of that chart for a key, and it's actually under the word year,
Yeah.
halfway in the middle of the page.
Yeah, okay.
If people can't find it.
Turn to page 6. Okay, the study will have pros and we can do whatever. The key on page 6 is, here's the data of your catchment area, the 2 counties you're in. The key here is take a look at live births by school district. You see that live births about 2/3 of the way down? Live births by school districts. In 2014, 2015 is not out yet, it won't be until December of this year. You had 138 births, which is good news, because in 2013 you only had 127. That's good news. However, in 2002 you had 174 births. Okay? See how that goes? That's just the data. For those of you who like to look at data, not at pictures, there's that. But let's look at some pictures. Wayne County live births from 2014 to 2013. The pattern is
Wait a minute,
down.
where is that?
Next page.
Page 7.
No, page 7, 2014 to 2013. No, forgive me. We don't have 14 yet for the county. That's not published yet. In fact, the live births for schools isn't published yet. I contact the health department, they help me. They actually give me before it's even published. It's not published yet. So if you look at page 7, this is not uncommon. Most upstate counties have a decreasing pattern of live births. Has nothing to do with the county, good, bad, or indifferent. Has a lot more to say about general demographics of our culture.
Yeah.
People are having fewer children. They're waiting longer to have children, if any. At age 32, I had 3 sons, and I was already a superintendent for 4 years. My 32-year-old son just had his first child. And I'm not that old. That's one generation difference. That's just a quick, fast example. And you can have, I'm sure you have the same kind of stories from your own family and your own neighbors and friends. The pattern of having children has changed in the American culture, and it's being reflected in fewer live births throughout the country. All right?
Okay, I have a question. Does this do anything, because I would say for Walworth and Ontario, if I was to make a guess, I would say 95% of the births that, for people that live in Walworth and Ontario happen in Monroe County. Does that make any difference?
Well, wait a minute.
They do not have their baby in Wayne County.
No. Oh, no, good question. If you live in Wayne County and you choose to have your child in Westchester County Hospital reports to the New York State Health Department where you live, your residence, which is Wayne County.
Okay.
Got it? For example, I lived in Warsaw. All of my children were born in Rochester.
But
All
that
of them.
vital statistics reports it to,
Where the domicile of the parents.
okay.
See, so it has nothing to do where you choose
Thank
to
you.
have
I
your.
never knew that.
Oh,
I would
yeah.
have never guessed that.
No. I chose as our right. We had our children
No,
in
Newark is
Rochester,
not
not
that
at the
busy.
Warsaw Hospital.
I'll tell you what,
Okay?
by the looks of this, Walworth's been busy.
It was our choice. Anyway, okay, take a look, and we show you Monroe County because a piece of your, not a lot, you're in Monroe County. I want you to see that.
Right.
Okay? And I'm debating, Ron, it's a lot more work, but I'm not afraid of work. I'm gonna think about this demographic stuff. I can't promise this, but let me look at it. I might give you Wayne County, Monroe County, 2015 of the 5-year thing of just your district, and 2010 of the district. So that would allow you to see what was the
trends
pattern
are.
in your neighboring county, your county as a whole, your district, but only 2010 for the district. You see where I'm going?
Yeah.
Still would be good.
I mean, it's a lot more
Yeah.
data, but you bring up an important thing, and it's, because you did, I gotta think of something, so I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Mhm.
Okay,
So,
anyway.
Paul, so where it says live births Wayne County, that means not our hospital, that means how many babies?
People who live in Wayne County had babies.
Had a new baby,
Right.
no
Doesn't
matter
matter where they
it
had
was.
'em.
Okay, all right.
No matter where,
Oh.
okay? Got it?
Yep,
All right, so, and then you see, but now take a look at page 8. Here is the 10-year pattern of live births in your school district. You see the pattern is going down. However, data is data. The more data points you have, or again, I'm an old English teacher, so the math thing is, again, this is pretty just simple math here. But the more data points you have, the more it evens out the pattern line, right? So that's why I give you a chart showing the past 6 years, which is the most recent past. The good news is your decline in pattern of live births is a little less over looking at it over 6 years than over 10 years. Not a lot less, but I'll look at anything that gives some, so you can see, right? It's still in decline, but not as fast in pattern trend as looking at it as over 10 years. What's that say? It's a little more positive, I guess.
so you're
because
saying the difference between 146 and 138 is a lot smaller
the
than
pattern,
164 and
the rate of
138?
decline, the rate of decline. Not the numbers, but the rate of
Oh,
decline.
okay.
Remember 7th grade math, we learned about patterns and trend lines? I know.
It was a long time ago, when dirt was new.
The slope is less in decline, okay? Again, just trying to give you a picture, all right? So if you look at page 9, at the bottom, now let's look at kindergarten. Forget that. Look at the bottom of page 9.
Well, that's what I see here.
Well, isn't this interesting? Your pattern of kindergarten enrollment is at less decline than your live births. Well, isn't that interesting? Then where'd these kids come from?
Move in.
Well, hold on. Let's look at the data. You're right, but let's look at the data, okay? Let's look at the data. No, really. So, isn't that interesting? Well, let's look at page 10. Unfortunately, when we look at it for the past 6 years, see at the top of page 10? You have a higher rate of decline by looking at your kindergarten enrollment over the past 6 years than over the past 10. That's reversed. Isn't that interesting? Remember the live births was different? All right? Now, if you would, you might want to rip this apart. Page 10 at the bottom shows you a picture of page 11 data. Let's look at page 11. What we did here, this is real data. This is not made up hypothetical. We take your 2002 births. See page 11? 2002 births. Compare that to the number of kids who showed up in kindergarten 5 years later. Only 94% of the kids who were born in your district showed up in kindergarten 5 years later. Got that?
Well, wait a minute, does that include like kids who are redshirted, who don't come when they could?
I'm not here. It doesn't matter if it's or not, they didn't come.
They didn't show up.
They're not yours. They could have, who cares, they fill out the paperwork. They never showed up to be a client.
That's,
They talking about holdbacks. You know,
I
like.
call them
they're-
Like they start a year later instead of starting when they are.
Well, good point, but you see, when we consistently look at that, it's over time, so it's in there. It's taking, again, you hear what I'm saying? Because we benchmark it to that, and we do it consistently, they're accounted for over the span of looking at all these years.
Okay,
Does that make, now, I want you to make sure you understand
I
that,
got it,
right?
yep.
Okay, so the next year, slightly fewer, only 94% born here showed up 5 years later. But you know what was happening in 2007-8? Do we all remember?
People move.
Recession. This is pretty common throughout the state. For survival, people didn't necessarily move for a job. Many had to move to go back home because they had no place to live because of the recession. So those are very key years in everybody's district when that recession hit. It hit at the end of 2007 and really hit in 2008. That's not uncommon. I'm not saying that's the only reason that happened, but it is a major economic, social issue that happened. All right? Keep going down the list. But notice what happened starting in 2005, births compared to 2010. Now you've had more people show up to kindergarten than were born in your district. That's good news when that happens. That happened for the next few years. Now, I'm not saying this is an actual trend because we don't know yet, but notice what's beginning to happen 2010 and 2015. 1 year does not make a trend. But you see how important it is to year to see what is that pattern. Now, some here are saying, oh my God, the nuclear power plant's going to shut down, so we're really going to get hit. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. One of the things that I've asked Mathis to do with his contact, not by name or whatever, but we want to look at two things. One, look at your student database without identifying people. How many times does a reference to the nuclear plant show up as an emergency number or where people work, not by name? You see what I mean? And also, if he has access to somebody at the plant, how many might live within this zip code or within Wayne Central School? Let's see how big the problem is. You might say, well, gee, Paul, we're right next door. Well, there's a phenomenon in upstate New York, is this. Just because you're next door to a major employer, that doesn't mean that that major employer's majority or even pejorative or sub-minority or number, it's the medicine. A number of those really live in your district. There's so much underemployment in New York State that when jobs did open up, when the plant opened up, that we don't know this, but many who work there may live 45 minutes from here or 35 minutes from here. Your district may not be as impacted as one might assume. It will financially. That's a whole other issue. There's the financial issue. But here we're looking at clients, kids.
So so what you're saying is out of the 700 employees that Gannett has, we might only have 200.
Well, we don't know.
I'm saying we may.
Let's figure that out.
We're going to try to find out.
And yeah, let's take a look at that.
Yeah, no, that's
Enrollment purposes.
Question on that?
Yeah.
Just FYI, because Gannett's had different names over the
Oh,
last
I'm sorry,
couple of
whatever.
years.
Yeah.
I think it's either Exelon or Constellation or Gannett, and phone numbers have changed. Work there, you might not have the exact.
We're gonna try to do the first, we're gonna reach out to Gannett first and see if they can help us.
It's not going to be absolutely exact, but it's going to give an indication.
Just from personal
And,
experience.
To do it by zip code.
Well, yes and no. Unfortunately, the school district has multiple zip codes, I assume. Or if it doesn't, there'll be people with the same zip code but aren't in your district. So that's a little, anyway, we gotta, it's not as easy as one thinks. And you can't ask people to mine that data because it's run privacy issues and all that. So we use the best we can, which will give us an idea, maybe. Okay? So you see the pattern. Starting at your leisure, look at 12, 13, and 14. When we do enrollment projections, we give a low, a conservative, a mid, and a high, based on various assumptions. And these charts explain that. The study will explain it in prose when you get it. But this gives you an idea of where the low, mid, and high come from. Okay? And there are reasons for it. It's based on historical patterns and how we look at those patterns. Do we look at, remember when we showed the chart for 10 years versus 5 years? So one of these charts uses data looking at 10 years in the past. One looks at it only 6 years in the past. Both are valid. Which one will it be? As I joke, we're good, but if we were that good, we would have won the Powerball. I would have sent a check for $10 million as a donation to Mathis and say, Mathis, we can't do the study. Well, he didn't get the check, so we didn't win. and we're doing the study. So we do the best we can to estimate the future based on hard data. Okay? So, what's it all mean? And we always show our work. That's one we're noted for. We don't expect you to take our word for anything. So you'll see these very fine-tuned charts. It's very easy to follow. But let's take a look at page 16. First of all, at the bottom of page 16, look at the shaded numbers and shaded years. Please understand.
I don't have to.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, I do.
Bottom of 16.
Look at 2020
Oh.
for
Yeah.
Okay.
under the low range.
Now,
projection.
please understand. Here's the situation.
See how it's just a little.
Elementary K-6 projections are valid for only 5 years in the future. See why? Because if we did year 6, hey, we're good, but we have no data to show who's going to be born in 6 years, and then we're really good. I'm not doing a survey of who's thinking of getting pregnant. I'm not going to do that. All right, neither are you. So that's why elementary is only valid for 5 years out. Junior high years are valid for 8 years out when you have a separate building, which you do. High school, though, are valid for 10 years out because pretty much you can go count right now how many, adjusted for what your pattern is of who leaves you and who comes in, about how many secondary kids you have. You see the common sense of all of that? So that's why these projections really are only good, really totally for 5 years out. Even though the high school, you can pretty well count that in all likelihood that will be 10 years out. All right? So, where we're at is this. Right now in K-5, I think you have 980 kids, something like that. Right? In 5 years, we're suggesting you'll have either 811, if you prefer to be more conservative, 820 if you want a mid-range, and 834 if you have a high range. Therefore, the gap between the pupil capacity you have and the expected number of clients you'll have will get wider in all likelihood, unless some major variable occurs. That's why this study does more than just calculations. We interview realtors. We call each code office. All right? But, and we very well may document that, and it has to be, for example, if there's new residential construction, it can't be, Harry's been thinking about building 50 units for 5 years, and probably that'll happen. My next question is, has Harry applied for a permit? No. Has Harry sat down with you some preliminary plans where you've told Harry how many units really could fit on that property? No. In due diligence, we can't include that, what that may be. You see why? I mean, that's just not good planning. Okay? So it has to be, and we document it. That doesn't mean we don't put down that Harry, I'm making this up, Harry's been talking about this. Here is something you ought to watch for and keep in contact. Remember, with those codes people, because if Harry does it, you want to know, right? You see how we got to do it? It's just due diligence. Because in a neighboring district, we said this with administrators, in a neighboring districts that I've been working with, they just called, a developer is ready to put in, as we speak, 250 homes within 7 miles of your school district. But it's not your school district. That will have an impact on that school district, those 250 homes. Over the phase-in build-out, not right away, but over the build-out plan of that developer. Okay, you see how we do it? So, and it takes time. Wow, 250, all the kids they're going to get. However, they're not all school age at once. Some who move in will be already at elementary, some will already be at secondary. So you have to take that with not a grain of salt. You have to show and do a what if. At what age level will those children be who happen to might live in those 250 homes? So you see, even though that sounds like, wow, 250 homes, the yearly impact of that will be a goodly number but it's not gonna be cast of thousands either. See why? See, it takes a lot of
You're not
new
gonna get
residential.
500 kindergartners after it's
No,
done.
no, it takes a lot of
It's
residential.
gonna spread out across the
There you
whole-
go, and we show that. So that's why I said earlier, not to discount that you may have 10, like this year, you had more permits than ever, but relative to what? There were 3 last year and there were 14 this year. That's great news, great news. It really is. And that will be documented and considered in the potential impact of the use of your facilities. But you can see from the preliminary, that will not take up a large set of that gap, right? It will help, hey, we'll take every child we can get as a client. But it's not gonna make a massive impact on that gap. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
All right, that's all. So, preliminary stuff for you to start thinking about. What's not here is the information from the realtor, from the codes people. All right, not here. This gets you started to start thinking. Because there's no reason to wait, and we do this. And we said earlier, tonight's results will go online right away. The people capacity, when it's ready, we give it to Matt, this goes on right away. We want the community and you to spend half time at your leisure to start thinking about it. When the enrollment projection is done, which is the next thing done after the people capacity, get that out there. Then there will be because it takes time, there will be a set of time between those 3 things and the program delivery study. But in the meantime, those 2 baseline for the school business, an analysis of pupil capacity and analysis of enrollments, are baseline, quote unquote, business tools for running a school district. And you and your community will have that at your leisure to start thinking and talking about it. And you thinking about some what ifs, just in conversation. We do encourage this, please. Until the focus group is over, which is down the road, we don't know when that is, but we're, that we encourage all of you, we said this to your staff, we encourage it to you. If you go to, what was that, Valeri's, what was that, where you had the sandwich? The Cars. If you go to Vakari's and have a great, this is a commercial, I had a great turkey, and it was a hot sandwich, it was crisp with the bacon. There's my commercial, he deserves it. If you go there, and a neighbor knows you're a board member and starts saying, well, what are we gonna do? I think we ought to do this. What do you think? We encourage you, enjoy being a statesman until after the focus group. Say, well, listen, I'm sorry, you do what you want, you're bored, but here's our advice. Listen, don't get caught with what you ought to think, well, I think we ought to do this. Well, first of all, it may be preemptive to say that. You don't have all the data yet, right? Okay? Is that you listen and you encourage folks, look, we're having this study, let's see what the data says, and when that happens, let's talk again. Okay? That's our advice. You do what you want, but enjoy being statesman. You'll have plenty of time as a legislative body after it's all done, when the rubber meets the road, like, okay, guys, Ron, or whoever's well, it'll be Ron, okay, guys, what are we gonna do? You'll have plenty of time to be the legislators that you are. But in the meantime, be statesman on this. Let the data evolve, and let's all look at the data. We don't know what we're gonna do, if anything. Notice how the question is worded. It doesn't assume that there is a scenario. Because in the end, you're gonna be a judge of that, right? So, be statesman about it. Because when the time comes, like I said, you'll have plenty of time to exercise your rightful role as legislators for this district, as a board. There, that's my 2 cents worth of advice. You do, of course, whatever you wish to do. All right? Thank you. It was fun working with you.
The results.
Oh, the results, the drum roll. Okay, Doug, do it.
Just something was bothering me, I just had to go back and look at it, make a last second adjustment, because
Okay.
there was a number that was off. But what we've got, the blue circle, these are the actual questions.
So which one was number 1?
And then we've done the numbers that you can see here, and then we ranked them. So the first, number 1, if you go to question number 8.
That's number 1.
had 83 of your responses, so that was your number one priority.
So right here.
You want to read that, Paul?
Are there other ways to configure how we serve grade levels? That's your number one priority
Okay.
that the study should address. Go ahead.
All right, Paul, number 16 was 2.
Are there other better ways to reconfigure the school day? What's number 3?
Number 3, go to number 9 if you would, is number 3.
Are we using Coupa that we now have effectively, efficiently?
Number 15 is 4.
What factors should we consider examining how particular buildings utilized or not?
And then
Let's-
number
let's do the
5,
top 5.
we'll stop at the top 5.
Yeah.
Paul, go to 18 if you would.
Are there spaces that can be rented to other agencies to bring more revenue to the district? Now, we just did the top 5 because it's time to go home. But when we report this, all of them will be rank ordered, not one idea, not one word will be lost. So everybody sees what the rank ordering are. And this helps guide us in doing the study. But as I said earlier, this could, not doesn't have to be, this will be the preface. The results of tonight will be the preface of the study. Thank you for helping us write it. Because we suggest, I have a feeling that most of your committee will look at it and say, well, heck yes, I would have said the same thing. These are the things we ought to think about. So it could become an interesting discussion guide as you kibitz about what we ought to do. See what I mean? It's your tool, and it really has, we were told, it really does help people to focus your discussion when it is time to have your discussions with your community. Okay?
I think Carla had a question.
Carl, yes.
For Mathis mainly, if we want to direct someone to the website to look at this, what are we calling it, and where can they find it?
So we'll have a page up on the comprehensive study, it's called the comprehensive study, and we'll have a web page up, and you can tell them just to go right on the
Left,
website.
right, top?
We'll have a whole link to it. So
Okay.
when it goes on, it'll be very clear. You'll see it. There'll be a link they can click on. Okay? As soon as they get on there. you'll see
Thank
it.
you.
If I could just, so I want to make sure I give Ron a chance, and then I want to say something last. Go ahead.
I'd just like to thank the board members and the administrators for being here tonight. One of the unintended consequences is that as a board, we set expectations and we set climate for the district. How we act and when we act sends a powerful message to our district. And the willingness of the board to engage in these kinds of studies and to look at our operation, I think is sending a message to our district, and it's a very positive message, that we are looking at our operations to try to maximize our economic impact. And I just thank you for your support in agreeing to do this study. And gentlemen, I thank you for a great beginning. The information you're going to put together for us, I think, is going to be very, very helpful to us as we.
We'll do our best for you.
Yep.
We really will. And so you understand what's in it for us. In the end, what you choose is your business. You will never, even if you asked us, even if you said, really tell us what we ought to do, we will never say that to you. We will never say that to Mathis. What's in it for us is we look back, it sounds schmaltzy, but did we help this district to help them decide what they thought was best for their kids?
How about
That's
a
what's in it
suggestion?
for us. Nope. Nope. Your kids, your community, your money.
So you'll write it on the wall, it's up to us to read.
Yeah.
Well,
More or less.
pretty much.
Yeah.
But there'll be some dilemmas. And it's not all about saving money. It's also potential, it's all about, what am I saying? What we have found, even in tough times, we have found communities across the state, rich, poor, and indifferent. It's not all about the tax rate. It's about, okay, so if you did this, you could actually give me more for what I'm already giving you for our kids. And you will see that in some of this. You see where you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. For example, we were impressed with, we found out today that this board is committed that every building will have a certified librarian. Now, you may say that, well, yeah, of course, Paul, what else? Trust us, that is not necessarily typical. You value that. That's your right as the board. In fact, that's there are two big responsibilities you have. One, hiring a superintendent, and two, determining what the program is. All right? And that's one of your values concerning your program. all right? But, there's no buts to that. What there is you're also dealing with some other variables, like the potential for major financial, over a number of years, revenue issues. Balancing values with affordability. Okay? That's a major challenge. It's a major dilemma. All right? So, how can you do both? And it's not fishes and loaves. Only one guy could do that, and he's not, you can't hire him. You can ask him to help, but he's not gonna come do it. All right? Okay.
I just want
Yes,
to
sir.
also, so I think board, just as a reminder, thank you, these people have been here all night. The other items that were listed, I've taken a list of them, and I'll get back to you on next steps on those items. And I also wanted to make sure, since we're being videotaped, I'm clear. So we had talked about food service as a BOCES service that could be run. No one is trying to at all see our food service director go. I want to be clear because this is videotaped, and before it gets out there, that was just a scenario as a service that is typically run through BOCES. There are many services, but we want to be clear on that. And then the next step, so after they get going with the study, they've already gotten going, or I'll be back in touch with all of you all about our next get together and reporting out items. And as soon as these other items become available, I will share them and make sure that you get them. Any questions before we go through it? Everybody good? That's like I think so.
Okay?
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your work.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you've done.